the interesting thing you will find with critical stuff like this, and when you're critiquing, and the thing you should be aware of, is that it says as much, if not more, about your own position. And you might think, well, this, duh, of course, it's my opinion, but it says more about you than it does about the actual fiction, because you are reading into this fiction to a certain degree. And when you are reading into it, you are projecting onto it your values, your understanding of it, and then expressing that to the world. And yeah, it's your opinion, but the interesting thing and to always be aware of is that more often than not, with critical literature, like again, reviews, critical theory analysis, um, it's I think a fair way to put this would be that it says as much about you as it does the fiction. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't reveal or otherwise give you a good understanding about certain aspects of the fiction, depending on the type of analysis being done, certainly. But the more opinionated and or especially politically kind of motivated and or intent of the critique, the more that becomes relevant and the more it becomes pointed and or a project unto itself, is that I want you to feel this way about this thing, rather than I want you to know about this specific element within this thing as we could define it in general sense. Like there is there's a difference and a distinction that should be made. So I always find, um because I've seen it a couple, seen Ben Shapiro do some review here and there of various movies and fiction, and I usually find them to be hilariously bad in that they're just kind of hater. He's usually just a hater or a lover with absolutely no real good solid basis other than I have this political aim and I feel like this movie and or thing gets there. Now, again, it doesn't matter if the process or the proof or the logic in which it gets there is at all valid or what we might consider rational. It doesn't matter if it works. It doesn't even matter if it is particularly good quality, we might say. And again, that can be very subjective, but we might find some common ground of ideas of what makes a quality movie and what doesn't. So again, very subjective. Now it's just purely, again, he is the most bad faith, purely motivated. Again, think of a in the political and culture realm, think of Ben Shapiro is much like the same as a corporate raider. A corporate raider, especially 80s and even today, is the pure idea of it is simply gathering together a bunch of money, buying a company, not because you like the product or the company or the services or anything, but because it has a lot of value to be extracted. And then you buy it, then you kind of do the whole mafia style of the mafia would frequently like uh uh force local shops into debt with the mafia to a certain degree, and then they would take over the shop and kind of fire sale every last thing in there, um rack up as much debt as humanly possible on that person's kind of accounts, their personal accounts and business accounts. So they extract all the money they can out of that adventure as much as possible. And then they just kind of collapse it into bankruptcy. And then they divest themselves from it as that ship sinks. And then just kind of walks away from the devastation. That's kind of essentially corporate raiding in its essence. And that's what Ben Shapiro and many right wing kind of culture commentary comes down to, is that there is zero care or interest in fiction and its utility or anything like that, other than the most basic kind of dehumanized, deculturized, just robbed of all nuance and flavor power. That's the only thing that Ben cares about. So Ben will look at any piece of media, extract whatever he wants from it, use it in any way he wants, even if it's destructive to the medium, doesn't care. As long as he gains the tiniest bit of movement in the direction he wants, that's all he cares. That's usually what I've seen. I'm not sure what he's going to do with the Superman one, but I'm kind of curious to see what he thinks, because I watched the Superman movie, most of it. Um, but we'll see.
folks. So I watched the new Superman, and I have many, many thoughts. This video is sponsored by our friends over at ExpressVPN. I went with my wife. My wife and I always have an interesting time watching movies together because when I go, I'm very analytical about what I think of the movie. My wife sort of gets an overall gestalt, and it's mostly like, that was fun. And so my wife's review.
I love that. Like I understand the impulse to do this, but and in many ways I do that as I kind of do this as well, but I always love this weird necessary need and impulse to explain to people like, oh, I'm doing a movie review, and then you have to like, oh, well, I'm way more analytical than other people around me that were seeing this, and they just see it's fun or whatever, but I look into the deeper kind of aspects. Like, it's like, well, no shit, you're doing a fucking movie review. The only again, I'm big on understanding rhetoric. I'm big understanding, or I'm big on people paying attention, little stuff like that. Why was that necessary to say? Especially just in this kind of like, oh, I'm just telling it off the cuff. Again, remember, all this is performance. Everything, including me. So I don't necessarily begrudge this performance aspect, but we should acknowledge that this is incredibly performative. The only performance here, the only thing, is help reassure you that I'm not just a normal dumb rube. I can see the hidden and the clearly see the truths of things, and other people are just dumb slops who just eat up the slop being fed to them. Again, it's honestly kind of insulting to his wife to a certain degree, because again, we can get into the fact that everybody has some degree of analytical engagement with a thing. They just don't express it in this kind of formalized manner. So it always sounds to me so kind of pathetic. It really, really does. And maybe it's just because have been watching so many so-called rational, objective, center right leaning, I'm just telling the truth against all these crazy woke people. I've been watching too many of those dicks lately, and crazy people. But this just it's a small thing, but goddamn, I can't let it go. I can't let it go. This, oh, I'm the analytical mind. Well, one, even if you are, why are you saying that? Like, I could probably assume you're doing a 20-minute review of Superman, a movie. Duh. The only reason you're doing this is, again, just to appeal to. Uh, let's continue watching.
That was fun. And I think most people who come away from the movie will probably do the that was fun thing. And that seems to be what the people are saying. People are generally.
Also, this is a small, another small thing, but it does connect to the greater political project, and oftentimes the emptiness of what these people believe and the values is that they'll in one hand they'll talk about the will of the people when they're talking about like Trump or politics or whatever. They'll talk about the will of the people, and 70, 80 million people voted for it, that this is the heart of America, that if you ask ask 100 Americans, 99 of them are going to say X, therefore this is what it is true, and blah blah blah. And people like Peter Boghossian, if they want to talk about anti-gender affirming care, and they want to talk about the gender theory, whatever. It's like, well, if you took this theory and you walked up in your street epistemology to like like 100 people, I'm willing to bet you that they would all think it's silly and stupid. And that must mean that it's silly and stupid because, general consensus. I mean, 100 people can't be wrong. Um, but then when it comes to something to where all of a sudden, like, they're on the opposite end of what everyone else is saying, now they're just like, well, I mean, most people are going to like this, I guess. But, like, they're not really examining, they're not really understanding what's at the core and heart of this. It's kind of fucking annoying. Like, I like, it's hard to maintain a standard. I understand when you're dealing with popular and you want to get into the nuanced things and examine things in a critical way that are popular, that may not comport to the popular sentiment, but it feels disingenuous. Like, you could just say, hey, I want to talk about Superman. And you know what? For the most part, everyone seems to like it. It's really popular, and I'm going to go ahead and say that I think, from a general standpoint, I think, yeah, it's a pretty solid thing. But I do want to talk about some nuanced things, and I want to address this in a way that might kind of complicate the narrative and the aspects of Superman. This isn't to say that your like of this movie is valid. Like, that's how I usually try to approach when I know that I'm going to go against the grain on something. Is I make sure to point out that me going against the grain is my uniqueness, and not necessarily like a positive uniqueness. It's just, this is my uniqueness. And you might say, well, that's kind of what he's doing here. But see, again, he prefaced it by saying his wife doesn't analyze and think about things deep, when it comes to the movie. And it seems like that just seems like the general consensus among everybody else. Again, I I just, it's a small little tonal quality thing I have. And maybe I'm being a bit bad faith. It's true, possible. I dislike Ben Shapiro intensely. So almost anything he says, I'm going to be incredibly suspicious of. I think for good fucking reason. But take that with a grain of salt. Just the setup to this just kind of comes off as this, again, this objective intellectual wankery of, I'm smarter than everyone else.
was like, that was fun. And so my wife's review was, that was fun. And I think most people who come away from the movie will probably do the that was fun thing. And that seems to be what the people are saying. People are generally liking the movie. They think it's fun. They think it's kind of a kick. David Cordensweat is charming. He has good physical presence. I didn't mind him as Superman at all. Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane was fine. I thought she was great. I thought both of them had good chemistry. I thought all of that was fine. And then there is the analysis. So
Again, like, and I'm being a bit unfair to Ben. I will fully admit I'm being unfair to Ben. But honestly, I think if anyone, unless you've been living under a goddamn rock for years, if you've engaged with any of Ben's content to any degree, for the most part, Ben is not somebody who should be given a lot of good faith to. He is not a good faith interlocutor. He has not been his entire goddamn career. His entire career is supported and based upon some pretty reprehensible behavior and perspectives and actions. Not egregious ones, like, but like, from an argumentative and or intellectual standpoint, and academic standpoint, he's somewhat reprehensible. But all right, he wants to get into analysis. Let's get into the analysis. What do you say, Ben?
my overall review of Superman. Superman is super meh. It's meh. Okay, so all the people who are getting super exercised over the politics, and we'll get to the politics a little bit later on. I think that they are overestimating how much politics is in this. I think they're deliberately misinterpreting some of the politics that are in there. This is not a movie about illegal immigration. It's not a movie about ICE, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, the Palestinians. There may be references there if you have politics.
Okay, so this is an interesting kind of thing. So Ben, and here's my kind of prediction on this, or my assessment. I don't even need to see much more, though we will watch the whole thing, obviously. But here's my thing. Ben knows the movie isn't really that bad. Now, I would certainly agree, probably for entirely different reasons, that Superman is not an amazing movie. It's not bad. It's decent. I would put it at like a 6.5. Again, I don't give really high ratings to a lot of movies, so if anything starts cracking in the eights or nines, it's probably a really, really, really damn good movie. So a 6.5, anything like I rather than putting it on like a grading scale of like 50%, like in most colleges or whatever, that's a fucking failure. Like 60% is a D, 70% is a C. So if you're at 50%, you're in F territory. You're failing your courses. I don't really do that kind of ranking when I assess like movies or games or something like that. I do it by the old school, like 50% is a contentious game to where there is equal measure good and bad. And if you really, really like the good aspects, you'll probably have an okay time with this. The bad will still affect you and annoy you because it's pretty prevalent. 50% if it sucks, 50% is pretty good. So it's one of those things where unless you really like these elements that are good, or you like this aspect, you this game is going to be rough as shit, or this movie will be rough. So when I put something at like a 6.5 or whatever, it's kind of somewhat similar to the Rotten Tomatoes or fresh or rotten measure. Is that this is more good than bad overall, and overall, most people will find it relatively pleasant and entertaining. Um, I have some issues with it. I think there might be a couple of pacing issues. I think there might be a couple of um, kind of semi awkward story threads um, that maybe are just placed together in kind of a weird way to where that might be creating a bit of awkward pacing things. Um, but then there's a couple of there's a couple of scenes or a couple of lines, a couple of moments here and there that are not particularly well done. I feel maybe we need another take, another rewrite of that scene. Little stuff like that just kind of adds up into it's about a 6.5. The bad isn't necessarily super present and really distracting, but the good isn't super amazing good. So it just ends up at about a 6.5 for me, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. I watch tons of 6.5. I play tons of 6.5 games and I have a blast with them. They're just 6.5s. It's fine. Now the interesting thing here is Ben's approach, because he knows this is generally well liked and he doesn't have anything to really hate on, at least yet, is the biggest thing he wants to do, and this is something that a lot of these types will do, is he wants to defuse any and all political and or social commentary on this right off the bat. Is this a movie about X or Y or Z? No. And he's going to be very analytical. Of course it's not. It's got aliens in there and it's got these things and it's clearly not this because it doesn't immediately apply to it one to one. That's not analogies always have to apply one to one and be exactly looking like what they are, what they're analogous to. In metaphors, they have to be exactly like what the thing they are being metaphorical of. Um, yeah, he's taking this tactic because I have no doubt that the general politics, even though again it's not super political movie, but there are some pretty clear political aspects to it, like every single movie has, whether it's Indiana Jones, whether it's any of these classical adventure movies that people often say are more apolitical that are being held up as a standard like this. Now you can see certain ideological and or cultural political concepts that are in there that aren't the focus, but they're taken to be as true because that's how the world functions. The fictional world functions according to the rightness and correctness of these ideological positions, like an objective rightness correctness thing. Whether it's the superhero always winning over good over evil, so good over evil, whether it is individualism or kind of collectivism, something like that. The problem for Ben is that there are more than a few kind of little bits and pieces. There's bits and pieces, and I think Ben is really trying to undersell some of the more explicit bits and pieces that are in the new Superman that do have a certain political perspective to them, but they are not in agreement with Ben's perspectives. But Ben doesn't hate the movie, and he also knows that the way these things are being presented, it's kind of hard to be counter these perspectives without looking like an ass. So I feel like he's doing a bit of groundwork to try to make sure that you don't think about these politics on their surface level, but instead make sure to kind of go, no, no, it's not any of these things. But then he's going to try to analyze it in a way that changes the politics to suit his needs.
All the people who are getting super exercised over the politics, and we'll get to the politics a little bit later on. I think that they are overestimating how much politics is in this. I think they're deliberately misinterpreting some of the politics that are in there. This is not a movie about illegal immigration. It's not a movie about ICE, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, the Palestinians. There may be references there if you have politics on the brain, but other than that, I really don't think that there's that much of this there. That is not my overall problem with the movie. My overall problem with the movie is that you are taking the most iconic American IP of all time, Superman, which is to be treated with a certain level of respect. That doesn't mean it has to be, grand mythology the way that Zack Snyder wants to do. Like, my standard for Superman is not Man of Steel. My standard for Superman movies is 1978 Richard Donner, the best version of Superman.
Ben Shapiro doesn't give two rat shits about Richard Donner's Superman or Christopher Reeve's Superman. Let's make this abundantly fucking clear. At no point in time should you ever consider that Ben Shapiro gives two rat shits about comic books and or Superman or the mythology and or the legacy or anything like that. I guarantee you nothing about fucking Ben Shapiro's past, his career, his personal life, his politics, everything about this. The only reason he cares now is because it's become so popular amongst the culture, is that he has to give a shit about him if he wants to speak to the crowd. But at the same time, he doesn't. Again, remember, this is for the most part a cultural raider to its core. Now, why does he point back to the Christopher Reeve one? Because the Christopher Reeve one, for certain demographics, especially kind of middle-aged, 30s to 40s, and even some of the younger ones, there's been kind of this mythologizing of Christopher Reeve's Superman as being the one that is the best. Now, I can certainly agree to certain qualities like that, but part of the reason why they like that one is because, for the most part, the politics and or any kind of cultural relevancy or touchstones, the potentiality, if you will, the cultural and critical potentiality of Christopher Reeve's Superman is relatively untouched and or simplistic and uncompromised. It is not problematized by anything of objective reality or reference to society. And even the parts that it's because it's so old and kind of canonized. Nobody is looking back on it. It's just kind of, it's made into this nice, safe, warm blanket where there are no scary, like, awareness of social justice issues. It's just pure goodness. And I don't have to think about it, even though technically, if you go back to those movies, there is certain political and or socio-cultural aspects that we can read into there that, funny enough, would be very counterintuitive to the current conservative kind of mindset and approach to these things. But it exists in this mythological past to where they don't have to think about it. They don't watch the old Superman movies. They don't care about the old Superman movies at all. So his whole, this is my Superman. It is purely, again, it's like the denim. It's like the the politician who decides they're going to wear some cowboy boots and some denim jeans, and they're going to go out there and look all kind of cowboy whenever they're visiting Texas or some shit like that. And just like this, dude, you grew up in fucking Chelsea. You grew up in fucking on Fifth Avenue. You grew up in the most elite, privileged fucking areas possible. And your culture and your area, you absolutely made fun of these kind of types as shit kickers, as dumb rubes. And now you're coming and you're like, ah, I respect your culture and I love it. I've always enjoyed country music. Or shit. But again, the primary thing right here is to try to go to appeal to a non existent apolitical past that was never apolitical, and try to appeal to this sentiment of when you could just enjoy things without thinking critically of them, this childlike past. This is maybe I'm reading a bit too much into this, but I don't think I am. This is a very standard tactic when it comes to kind of more center right and right leaning cultural criticism, is appealing to the past that isn't political. Well, let's review this a little bit.
Has to be, grand mythology, the way that Zack Snyder wants to do. Like, my standard for Superman is not Man of Steel. My standard for Superman movies is 1978 Richard Donner, the best version of Superman. It just is. Overall, here is my problem. James Gunn is the wrong director, writer, creator for this thing.
I saw Chewbacca on the cover of People magazine. I was like, oh my God.
He's just wrong for it. It's Guardians of the Galaxy with Superman in it. And so that means it's all kind of a mess. It's an overstuffed movie in every way. It's visually overstuffed. In terms of plot, the plot holes are big enough to drive a truck through them. There are character problems. And
so, again, visual mess, not really. And again, the big thing, that's an interesting critique. Is it a visual mess? Not any more than any other big blockbuster thing, whether it's Guardians of the Galaxy or Zack Snyder or anything like that. Like, again, I have my issues with some of the action scenes to a certain degree, but for the most part, it is not really visually messy. Like, unless you just don't like CGI kind of extravagance, but again, if they're that just seems to be the standard. Your problem isn't with James Gunn. Your problem is with CGI movies. But again, if you're doing a Superman movie and you want to show Superman doing Superman stuff, unless you're putting a ton of effort into either practical effects and or you're making a kind of a way different tone movie. It's really hard to do Superman stuff without Superman. Like or I'm sorry, with Superman stuff without super CGI. And that's kind of what's going to happen. So then he says a bunch of random stuff that he's not going to elaborate on. He's like, oh, James Gunn is the wrong one because he's going to make it Guardians of the Galaxy. Well, it's not really it's supposed to be a Superman movie, but they do want to establish it in a universe. So part of the thing that they're going to do, and again, I have my problems with ensemble cast to a certain degree, but it is, if you are going to do kind of a universal thing, you don't really have the luxury that Marvel did of, 10, 15 years of mostly solo movies, them just making these solo movies with only the barest hint that they're in the same world and interconnected. And then they can finally connect them with the more ensemble cast. Like DC kind of needs to get a jump on this, so they want to introduce characters. They want to introduce the idea. And I feel like it's important, actually, in a Superman movie that Superman isn't alone. Now, do I think James Gunn did an effective job in having Superman's existence within the rest of the superhero community and examining it? Do I think he did an amazing job with that? It's okay. He got some of the essence in there. But again, kind of Superman... Superman can be rather interesting depending on storylines and the ideas you want to play with. But one of the interesting ones is, again, his presence and the concept of him in comparison and juxtaposition to other heroes. That's actually one of the more positive and interesting ways of engaging with the Superman mythos, is examining him in contrast to others. And those others need to be superheroes. You need to have those others kind of come into play. So the critique against Gunn, I'm not sure where he's going to go with this. And this whole like, oh, he saw Chewbacca, is like, what? He's too nerdy. Like, I'm sorry, you like the old 70s. You just hold on. You literally just said you love the old 70s Richard Donner, Christopher Reeve movies. Those are objectively the best ones. And then all of a sudden you're having this moment where what James Gunn is kind of geeking out, probably telling a childhood story of, hey, I saw in a movie theater, I saw Chewbacca come up on screen, or maybe even as adult, and he's talking about childhood love of Chewbacca, and he sees it come on screen. He's like this, oh wow, that's just amazing. I love that. But that doesn't make any sense. You literally appealed to nostalgia and the childlike wonder of the original Superman, but then you're gonna now put this weird little shithead dig at James Gunn for being a nerd and loving this stuff. Oh, he's too goofy and whatever. Again, that's that say that. Don't do these cheap shots. These cheap shots reveal that this is not a sincere engagement.
He's just wrong for it. It's Guardians of the Galaxy with Superman in it. And so that means it's all kind of a mess. It's an overstuffed movie in
Now, again, I'm not quite sure how we're overstuffed, but okay.
every way. It's visually overstuffed. In terms of plot, the plot holes are big enough to drive a truck through.
Plot holes. Again, nobody gives a shit about plot holes. Most people don't even understand what plot holes are. Again, plot holes aren't just things that are weird or silly. Like, plot holes are literally usually contradictory and or totally unexplainable and or missing necessary things. Plot holes are basically the equivalent of, from a plot perspective, the same as like oh shit, I can't remember what they're actually called in the movie scene. Basically a continuity issue with like somebody is wearing a scarf and then they cut and it's in the same scene and they cut to another shot and then they cut back to the person they're not wearing a scarf, then they cut back and then they cut away and then cut back and there they are wearing the scarf and the scarf goes from blue to green and green to blue and it's just like this. Well, hold on a second, this doesn't make any fucking sense. Where's the scarf going? Or oftentimes the plot hole is literally just like the scarf disappears, like where the fuck did the scarf go? Until all of a sudden the scarf reappears like 10, 20 scenes later for plot purposes. And I guess, where did the scarf go? The scarf hasn't been present for a long ass time. And now all of a sudden the scarf is present because it was necessary for plot. That's kind of where we're getting more. Again, it's a very pseudo analytical, I'm a STEM lord and this magic system doesn't make any sense kind of trope to say plot hole. I'm curious what he thinks are the plot holes, and whether he'll actually get into them.
There are character problems, and all of it is just kind of wrapped around this gauzy, fast-paced, jokey tone that
Like, again, none of that is necessarily bad, and again, a fast-paced, jokey tone. Well, like, one, okay, so you don't have a problem with James Gunn. You have a problem with any form of Marvel movie or any kind of movie, adventure movie, comic book movie made in the past, I don't know, 20 years. Like, I can maybe see some aspect of that, like, it's too jokey, but it seems weird because part of the reason James Gunn is maybe a better fit for this is because, well, quite frankly, the Snyder ones are morose fucking slogs that aren't particularly good at melodrama, so they're just morose and dark without actually being dark. They're just kind of annoying. The Superman movies, even the Reeve ones are filled with jokes. The old Christopher ones, they're filled with small little jokes and little bits and pieces of humor and characterization humor. Like, is it faster paced? Obviously, but the old movies, they're slow paced because, again, it's kind of a different style. It's like your problem is with literally with any modern movie made after like 2000. Look, I like some slower paced movies to a certain degree. I do, but I also can appreciate the other ones, the faster pace. So it's not good or bad. It's just a strange. Again, I'm always going to go back to, if you say this is your gold standard, your critique of this one seems odd unless you elaborate.
It doesn't mesh with Superman as central part of Americana.
And again, Ben is very much not just a nationalistic kind of individual, but Ben's politics are incredibly bigoted towards any form of anything that isn't very strictly kind of a Judeo-Christian outlook. Now you might say, well, that sounds a little off the cuff. Why are you saying that? It's because it's basically going to be this entire problem is that he doesn't like the humor because this Superman, or because he knows Superman represents something important, he wants total domination control over that representation. He wants it to only represent the aspects of American culture that he wants to believe that are true. He doesn't want to represent any other parts. He wants very strong control over this. And again, we haven't seen where he's going to go with this too hard. But, and I might be poisoning the well a little bit, so maybe I'll let him talk a bit more and try to elaborate on this. But the big thing for him is, remember this, when he says America, he doesn't imagine America as the diverse melting pot of cultures and ethnicities it has always been for many, many years. He imagines America as explicitly white, Judeo-Christian, heterosexual, white picket fence. Again, this kind of strange, fantastical perspective, this appeal to a history and a time in America that never actually existed, by the way, never fucking existed. But he's appealing to this mythologized, past historical American identity. That is very it is a very much a childlike fantasy. Just that he refuses to let go or just kind of understand that this was just a construct of him being a privileged, sheltered little child, and he's now just turned this into the angry, spiteful, vengeful, controlling, authoritarian adult perspective, and was very pissed off that the world is not turning the way he wants it to be turned. So I will repeat this as many times as possible. I'm not an unbiased observer of Ben Shapiro. I know Ben Shapiro in his work. I've seen it for many, many, many years, crop up here and there. He has always been a gigantic bastard. Well, let's go on. He says Superman, this doesn't fit Superman because it doesn't fit the true Superman who is just this part of Americana.
Doesn't mesh with Superman as central part of Americana to me. James Gunn's sensibility is always to be subversive. That is what he does. He does subversive in Guardians of the Galaxy, right? He takes a comic book movie and he turns it into sort of a potty-mouthed sitcom.
Don't drink foul.
What the fuck is that? Like, that's not necessarily subversive. What? Again, here's the interesting with this. Like, is there some degree of subversion happening in these movies? I think to a certain degree with the humor and the non-heroic nature of heroes, but also it's not, that's only subversive to a modern audience who has zero understanding about any of these characters, because the Guardians of the Galaxy is explicitly a group of individuals who are not really heroes, especially starting out. None of them have a heroic background. Again, Peter Quill is kind of a thief and was a member of a raider group. I think again, sometimes they change the origins of these characters over the years, but I'm fairly certain, yeah, that makes sense. Groot's probably the most honest one, but even Groot is just kind of a partner to Rocket, who, again, like in the movie, I believe his original start before joining the Guardians of the Galaxy is lab rat turned bounty hunter. Gamora was explicitly an assassin for one of the most evil, conquering, tyrannical bastards in the galaxy, Thanos. Mantis, when she is joined, I suppose might have the more positive background. I don't remember if she originally is a member with Ego to any degree. I can't remember her background. And Drax the Destroyer, well, his name is Drax the fucking Destroyer. These are not the heroes, the normal heroes. These are not Superman. So it's not subversive. That's like saying, the director of John Wick is a very subversive kind of director where he shows, he takes the standard hero movie and he makes the hero like a murderer and an assassin. Well, that's what John Wick is. That's not subversion. What are you talking about? That's like calling any war movie that depicts Vietnam in a negative light and the soldiers as not always these clean-cut boys in green fighting for American democracy, calling that subversive. Like, I suppose you could see it's subversive of an incredibly childlike and uncritical awareness of American, military foreign policy. But like at this point, doing a movie like that, that's not subversive. Like, again, he doesn't seem to understand. He uses these words subversive because he knows his audience hates certain efforts by modern kind of media to subvert the normal expectations and present you with strange and crazy kind of contradictory or questioning elements. So again, this idea that James Gunn is wrong for this. James Gunn, again, I'm thinking about the movie, and again, I didn't watch it too closely, this Superman movie, because I just wasn't really super interested at the time I was watching. I just kind of had it in the background watching it. Yes, I may or may not have pirated it. Ignore that aspect, but I don't see the Superman thing as subversive at all, unless he is somehow confusing narrative conflict where people of different opinions are colliding with Superman and they aren't explicitly evil. So like, again, good is in conflict with good, unless he somehow sees that as subversive, which maybe you could see, but only in the most basic childlike good versus evil is the core of things, and thus there can any conflict or interpersonal conflict or questioning that happens, that would be like saying that not Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm staring at that, but Lord of the Rings is subversive of like heroic good versus evil tropes. It's like, not particularly. Like, you could maybe try to make that argument, but that's a silly one to make.
Galaxy, right? He takes a comic book movie and he turns it into sort of a potty-mouthed sitcom.
And again, potty-mouthed sitcom depends on the comic book. Again, who's being reduction? This isn't subversion. This is reductionism. You think a comic book movie is literally only superheroes, and more importantly, it's only Superman. Like, I'm sorry, then is Batman subversive? Because he's definitely not Superman. Like, there are so many comic books. This is, again, showing just a general unintelligent and anti-intellectual understanding of the medium.
Don't drink fountain water, you idiot. That's disgusting.
What's I'm sorry. What is this? So you think that subversive and or potty mouth stupidity is fish out of water actions and or incongruency, to where a character, the somewhat silly character, does something that is socially a faux pas, and another character calling out, you think that's weird? What? I'm confused. Again, this is what happens when you do social and like literature critical analysis, when you have such a unbelievable like horse blinders restriction on your way of thinking, so much that you are so limited, so unflexible, so anti-intellectual, so stuck in your own very narrow understanding of the world, that you can't see different forms. Like, you literally can't see different forms. It's almost like it gets to the point where you're uh it's like kind of the same aspect of like almost a lack of object permanence, to where it's the opposite, to where you have such firm object permanence to where every single object is compared to the original object of whatever you have in front of you, and thus anything that doesn't match up to whatever object was in front of you, like the shape of an apple, everything else is wrong and incorrect and weird because it's not the shape of this object and doesn't have the qualities of this object. This is what's really weird when you look at really kind of, especially kind of conservative religious critical thinking and critical analysis. It gets super weird.
And he does the same thing with Suicide Squad. He takes that same sensibility, and now he's doing that with Superman.
Superman robots, I thought I told you to keep an eye on him.
We feed the canine, but he is unruly. And he realizes we are not flesh and blood and couldn't, in our heart of hearts, care less whether he lives or dies.
And I get that after the interpretation...
Again, what's... Like, it's just humor. Is humor bad?
...of the Snyderverse is over serious. He's reversing himself into completely the opposite direction. But what that means is that he's constantly subverting everything.
I was raised with a dog that was my sister.
The very beginning of the movie, you are told that Superman is the most powerful metahuman, right? There's like a placard that says 30 years ago, the metahumans arrived. 3 years ago, Superman emerged. 3 weeks ago, there was an invasion. And now 3 minutes ago, Superman's ass got kicked.
I'm not messing around. I'm doing important stuff.
He's not very super. He is not the man.
It's so silly. Like, he's not super. Ben, I need your help with this one, Ben. You have to understand that one of the biggest challenges with Superman, and people have acknowledged this for years, this is also something people who are fans of Superman absolutely will admit, and you're just so not in sync with them at all, is that Superman is not interesting unless you can challenge him. And because of his power levels, which is why they fluctuate all over the goddamn place, and why they constantly have to create newer, bigger, stronger things to throw at him, and they had to make kryptonite, is that any story, any narrative that does not have the potentiality for conflict, or have any conflict at all, we don't. You can maybe say this is a flaw of human psychology, but congratulations, welcome to literature criticism awareness from fucking like 1200s. We have acknowledged and understood that conflict and struggle are an essential part of narrative interest for us. Superman isn't very super. I'm sorry, Superman fucks stuff up all over the goddamn place in this movie. Like, okay, he loses a fight one time for a little bit. Like, again, this is like Hero 101, like Hero's Journey 101. It's like if the hero never loses, the hero never goes through the hero's journey. Like, it's nonsensical. The hero's journey is kind of that core concept. Like, you have to have him lose. You have to have him struggle. You have to have him face fights that he must learn and adapt and change and become stronger and more wiser. You know, you have to have the belly of the whale moment. Then you have to have the return, the apotheosis. You have to have the connection. You have the master of two worlds, whatever you want to call it. You have to have these elements if you want to make a very classical style hero's journey. Like, Superman loses and otherwise it has trouble and issues in the original Superman movies. And again, he has just as much. It's like this, oh, it starts with him losing. Yes, that is a dynamic. And yeah, it's played up for a little bit for some degree of laughs or whatever, but at this, to some degree of humor, but to lighten the mood. But again, immediately after he loses his fight, is he gets healed back up and he like tries to go back to it. And I'm trying to remember the sequence because I watched the movie just the one time. So I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head. But he kind of goes back into the fight, if I remember correctly. So it's just like, all right, so he gets knocked down, he gets up again, you know. What is it, Chumbawamba? The fucking, you know, he gets knocked down, he gets back up again. That's like the whole American values right there, you know. And again, he fights tons of stuff and again struggles against it, then he beats up. And more importantly, you say, oh, he's not very super, but you just had a scene where you were talking about visual, a lack of visual clarity and noise happening. See if we can find it.
The plot holes are big enough for a stuffed movie in every way. It's visually overstuffed in terms
you see all these guys, they're all in big old superhuman suits, mecha suits that are super powerful. And again, they were getting the shit kicked out of them by some other heroes or whatever, but they can all fly and they have some degree of super strength. They all are dangerous. And again, I think you see a fight between them and Mr. Fantastic, and Mr. Fantastic kicks the crap out of them. But there weren't a ton of them. Mostly they were just like normal soldiers, but there was a few of these guys here and there, and he beats them up and takes them down. But the big thing is, like, if we look at this
the plot holes are big.
That scene right there shows Superman absolutely pantsing the shit out of these dudes. And what he doesn't show, like, again, because that's from the trailer, because he doesn't want to show too much because it's probably, you know, copyright and shit like that. But the big thing that you might notice, maybe small spoilers, I'm not sure if this is spoilers if you're watching this and you don't want to be spoiled, I don't know what to tell you. There's literally right after that a shot of Superman basically flying around kicking the crap out of these guys in a very much old school, the good guy comes back and we're really emphasizing how much he's beating the shit out of these bad dudes, and it's effortless. He is beating them effortlessly, and they all gather around him, and it gets to the point where it's so ridiculous because he's so strong, he's so super, that you have this ball of mech people that have just like collapsed around him. Like, there's so many people trying to grab onto him, beat him up, that it's this giant ball. It's ridiculous. And he literally does his super spin and just starts spinning and just kind of spinning around. They're being flung off into buildings and flung around. And then like he breaks away from them and then he lasers them in the, doesn't kill them. He just lasers them. And then you literally see there's a shot. Again, my sequence of events might be slightly off here, but there's another shot where it's a street level shot and you see like raining down from above all of these guys in their mech suits that are all broken. They're still alive and they're just crashing into the ground, all sore and groaning. Oh my God. All that shit. And it's almost this comical rain as like 2 dozen plus guys, CGI guys are just fucking raining from the sky because Superman there was only like 1 or 2 small things that Superman had a trouble with, or basically one thing that Superman had trouble with. We'll keep the spoiler free on that one, I guess. But once that threat was dealt with, like, Superman just beats the shit out of everything. How is that not super? Oh, he's not very super. He's weak. He's beat down. Like, yeah, but again, you fundamentally don't give a shit or understand about literary criticism and or even the hero's journey. You don't care about the things you're talking about. You're just pissed because you know there are political and or social cultural tiny elements in here that absolutely triggered your ass.
Does the same thing with Suicide Squad. He takes that same
Feed the canine, but he is unruly, and he realizes we are not flesh and blood and couldn't in our heart of hearts.
And again, this is Crypto. like, oh, well, why would he show the scene of such a unruly dog? This emasculates him. I honest to God, I swear to God, if he says that Crypto's doing this emasculates Superman, I'm going to have a goddamn laugh. One, because it's just such a fragile masculinity kind of comment, but also, like, unless I'm misremembering, Crypto from the comic books has always been kind of a unruly ass. Like, he gets maybe a bit more tamer here and there after years, but again, he wants to kind of show that, he's been here, but not tons of time, and Crypto's here, and like, Crypto's kind of an ass. He's a very rambunctious asshole dog. That's Crypto.
Care less whether he lives or dies.
And I get that after the interpretation of the Snyderverse is over serious, he's reversing himself into completely the opposite direction. But what that means is that he's constantly subverting everything.
I was raised with a dog that was my sister.
And what's with these weird cuts? There's just such bad faith, weird cuts of James Gunn just to mock him.
The very beginning of the movie, you are told that Superman is the most powerful metahuman, right? There's like a placard that says 30 years ago, the metahumans arrived. 3 years ago, Superman emerged. 3 weeks ago, there was an invasion. And now 3 minutes ago, Superman's ass got kicked.
I'm not messing around. I'm doing important stuff.
He's not very super. He is not the Man of Steel. He is not invulnerable. He gets his ass kicked routinely. He gets locked up.
And again, like, I'm sorry, yeah, that you're irritated that he gets his ass kicked routinely, but this is the fundamental problem of like a Superman style story, is that unless, like, you can do it many different ways, and it's not bad to have the superhero character be maybe depowered or otherwise put in a position where they are going to get beat up. Like, that's part of the storytelling. Yes, you're looking at the hero when they're at their lowest point, the belly of the whale, whatever you call it, the lowest point of the hero's journey cycle. Yes, congratulations. You've acknowledged and become aware of basic fucking mythological, archetypical storytelling, which is literally the opposite of, again, subverting expectations, because this is something that is expected.
In a prison with a character who's making kryptonite out of his hands.
Sorry, what?
He's constantly in.
What's wrong with that? Again, you don't understand the character. The guy's making kryptonite out of his hands. Yeah, that's one of the things he can do. I'm pretty sure he can do that.
Victim mode. Like, Green Lantern has much more success in this movie. Mr. Terrific has much.
Again, that's because Green Lantern isn't the character. He's not the hero. The hero goes through the hero's journey. And again, if you want to say that it's because he's a side character. That's like saying, well, the comic relief didn't go through a hero's journey. They're the fucking comic relief, Ben. What are you talking about? Did Lois Lane go through this kind of stuff? Like, again, what do you want, Ben? And then, all these other side characters, all these other characters that I want, because again, Superman, because he wants Superman to be explicitly American values, he's going to interpret this, this is America getting beat up, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, but again, you just don't understand story structure, and you respond like such a goddamn tool. Again, what do you want, Ben? You don't understand how stories are told.
In victim mode. Like, Green Lantern has much more success in this movie. Mr. Terrific has much more success in this movie than Superman. Superman's.
Just because you don't know who Mr. Terrific is doesn't mean jack shit of jack shit. Fuck off, Ben. Mr. Terrific is actually kind of an alright character. He's just underutilized.
Parents from Krypton, if you're going to go through the mythology, send him to Earth so that he can be a moral guide for people on Earth using his great powers to stop evil from happening.
A moral guide. So is morality tied explicitly to his superpowers? Is morality explicitly tied to this might that he has? Or is it something else? Or is Superman super even without his powers? That the powers simply allow him to express these values in a way that ordinary people might not do. Again, you don't understand the story and the idea of Superman because you are a piece of shit, Ben, and you don't have morals or values. Superman isn't. Again, this goes back to, this is literally like foundational mythological aspect of Superman as an archetype. Is that, and again, so many stories have explored this. Superman is super, or is the shining beacon of truth, justice, and all that good stuff, and all that, not because he can lift a fucking train, or he's got laser beams out of his eyes, or he's invulnerable. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with him being a decent person. Superman is like the idealization of what happens. Normally, power only goes to the evil and the terrible. What happens if power, absolute power, lands in the hands of a good man? And that man is good enough and honorable enough, and more importantly, inspirational enough, that he is not corrupted by his power. Even if it's in many ways you could see as somewhat unrealistic or certainly idealistic, absolutely. But again, the power is an important part, but again, his morals and his moral foundation, the goodness that you are trying to appeal to, has its roots in many different things, many different parts of his life and his existence, but almost none of them really have anything to do with his power. And if they do, they're all secondary to other much more important cultural and or psychological or mythological structures.
Superman's parents from Krypton, if you're going to go through the mythology, send him to Earth so that he can be a moral guide for people on Earth using his great powers to stop evil from happening to them. In this movie,
Also, it's interesting that he focuses so much on the biological parents right there. Like, oh, they sent him to, like, okay, yeah, this goes into that kind of Jesus narrative kind of aspect, or this weird like baby Moses being floated down the river, the Nile kind of aspect, um, of the parents sending him. But it's interesting that he didn't bring up Martha or John Kent, uh, the ones who raised him. So you can see that there is some kind of destiny or whatever here. But again, it's odd that he didn't immediately go to, like, they sent him there and then he was raised by the Kents under this very true Americana structure of good, honest, hard work, blah blah blah, all that shit. Like, it's weird that he didn't go to that and he went to this kind of weird genetic destiny to do this, because yeah, they sent him to the planet to be, good, but that's not why he's good, unless you think somehow he's genetically good, which honestly, these days, I wouldn't put it past Ben Shapiro to be a very much genetic good, genetic evil, race realist douchebag. In fact, he almost probably is. Like, again, his actual origin, that's the big thing, is that this movie also somewhat emphasizes, and that many others have emphasized to some degrees, that his origin isn't super important to his overall personality, his overall ideology. And the only importance of it is that it basically reinforces the ideology that was given to him by the Kents, and that was uh hoped for by his parents. Like, his parents were good people who sent their child, and their child landed on a different planet and were raised by equally good people. um the weird thing, like, oh, he was sent to be this shining beacon. He was kind of, yeah, I suppose, yeah, yeah. And he became that through the Kents. Why are you focused? We'll let it go for now.
his parents from Krypton send him there. This is the big revelation of the movie. His parents from Krypton, if you're going to go through the mythology, send him to Earth so that he can be a moral guide for people on Earth using his great powers to stop evil from happening to them. In this movie,
So I think he's going to do there's a bit of a spoiler here. So there's your heads up.
His parents from Krypton send him there. This is the big revelation of the movie. His parents send him there to dominate the life on Earth as an alien invasion, essentially.
Again, it's interesting that Ben Shapiro is phrasing it like that, because that's actually the hyperbolic, bad faith interpretation that creates the tension in the show, or I'm sorry, in the movie, from people who are like anti-Superman as the movie goes on with this revelation. It's weird that he's actually taking the illogical and somewhat bad faith interpretation of this, because the basic reveal is that part of the recording says, be the shining beacon, all this kind of stuff, and then I think the recording is discovered, or the last bit of it is untranslated or fixed or whatever, and it says that you will be a god to them, and you will you will rule over them, and protect them or whatever. Again, it is a bit worse, but it still doesn't necessarily completely devalue the original sentiment of the message. It does complicate it to a point where, again, maybe the Kryptonians, maybe they looked at Earth, or maybe they looked at this place and they saw the primitive nature of it compared to them and thought, well, Superman will arrive and he will be a shining beacon of goodness, because we hope he will be, and then his powers will allow him to help to push us the direction we need to go by being a benevolent king ruler. The fact that the great irony here, and maybe this is also why it pisses Ben off, is that this whole ideology is very much American imperialism, American democracy, and his belief, and again, this his support for Trump, his support for this kind of authoritarian regime of, we need America and American values and the king and this good powerful figure to dominate and control the world. The world would be so much better if they just fell under the benevolent boot of me and my people and my type of people, my belief structure. Why if only. Again, it's interesting because Ben Shapiro's political and kind of cultural position mirrors far more closely the Jor-El and I can't remember the mom's name. It very much mirrors the Kryptonians who sent Superman to Earth. Like, there's some degree of benevolence, but it's also kind of like a benevolent ruler benevolence. It is, I am divinely chosen by my might and power to rule over you, but I'll rule over you with a gentle hand. And I guess that's going to really upset him. It's like, yes, that is somewhat of a more modern interpretation, creation, problematization of the original idea of the L's, the Jor-El, sending their child to Earth. But it's also like, if you're getting shocked by it, like, I'm sorry, this idea was first floated, like, I want to say it was like back in the 90s or the thousands. Like, this is not a particularly new kind of change to the story, so get with the fucking program. Many have acknowledged that, and honestly, it kind of makes more sense, because, like, okay, like, unless these people were just utterly strange, benevolent things, like, again, if they are so advanced and they see and they know, okay, this planet Earth exists and whatever, they could see, like, from a technological standpoint, these people are like fucking barbarian apes, and they're sending their child to them. Like, they would probably look at Earth with some degree of like chauvinism, some degree of superiority complex. The kind of way that Americans might look at the third world, even when they're looking at it in a so-called third world countries, even when they're looking at it with some degree of empathy and sympathy, they still look at it with a degree of arrogance. That's this observation, this concept, this awareness is not that radical, not that subverting, and it's not, again, it doesn't ruin it. It adds a little bit of spice to it, but it does not ruin it at all.
Parents send him there to dominate the life on Earth as an alien invasion, essentially, and to create a harem of Earth women to have his many babies.
Well, sign me.
I don't remember that being part of the message. The Earth harem. I don't remember that. Again, I don't remember the movie. Again, I saw it just the one time. So I would need to go back and check. But I think that he might be, there might be a line in there, something along the lines of, and through this, through your efforts there, you may need to repopulate and rebuild the Kryptonian society. I don't think that necessarily means harem. And again, I don't think they even say that. It's, again, this is kind of a really, again, bad faith interpretation of it.
Yeah.
So immediately you're taking the expectation of what you know about his Krypton parents and flipping it on its head. His parents, Ma and Pa Kent.
It doesn't matter. One, it's not really flipping on its head. It is adding a flavor to it. It's cocking it to the side, I would say. Not flipping it all the way over, but it is adding a cocking to the side. That, quite frankly, most people would probably go, well, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Like, it doesn't make that much. It's not that much of a hay to make up. It's not that crazy. And again, it really shouldn't matter because he's not really raised by them. So now he's going to talk about the Kents. Let's see what he says about the Kents.
In the original, they are noble and they are wise. They're kind of salt of the earth. Here, they're basically kind of, I don't know, like down home type.
What the? Wow. Wow, is your weird classism showing. Holy shit. Fucking Harvard silver spoon up his ass shit right here. How dare the salt of the earth poor people look like salt of the earth poorer people? How dare they not look like Clark Kent and or Clark Gable or all these nice Hollywood stars? How dare they not be these beautiful, wonderful, we live in a $1 million plus ranch, and we just, again, how dare they not be pop culture fucking country driving a big old brand new Ford F-250 shiny red? How dare they be like normal blue collar fucking people? Oh, look there, he's kind of fat and got a beard. He's fucking old. He's an old farmer. I don't know, like, look, there's two directions an old farmer goes. They either go fucking skinny and thin or they go fat. Oh, look, she's an older woman. She's not beautiful and sexy. Why don't we have Diane Keating? Or, was it Diane Keating or who played the mom in Zack Snyder's? That's going to actually bother me a little bit. Hold on. It's gonna genuinely bother the absolute shit out of me. Give me 1 second here. Man of I type today. Man of Steel. Diane Lane. How dare Martha Kent not look like Diane Lane, a fucking Hollywood actress? Classic beauty. How dare Jonathan Kent not look like fucking Kevin Costner? How dare they look like more normal fucking people? People who haven't spent decades doing fucking skincare products and fucking salons and going to all of these different fucking dietitians and to make sure that their health and skin are perfectly maintained so that they can still look like they're in their mid to late 40s when they're like 70, 60, 70 years fucking old. How dare they not? How dare they look normal? How dare they look schlubby? Oh my God. And I'm sorry, again, you literally show this. I'm sorry, is he a handsome, amazing looking man? Got big ears, he's kind of older. She's just, again, you're idealizing this past that doesn't exist, and you're putting this weird perspective. Like, how dare they not be like this weirdly, again, this powerful, like, salt of the earth, but I'm also a millionaire and I'm smart, and like, how dare they not be, again, they're normal people. This is salt of the earth. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Ma and Pa Kent. In the original, they are noble and they are wise. They're kind of salt of the earth. Here, they're basically kind of, I don't know.
Like, again, this is so telling on you being just such a piece of shit.
Like, down home types who don't
Oh, they're so down home. I'm sorry, what is the difference between salt of the earth and down home? What?
seem to, they live in a kind of a crappy house. They're the kind of people who call the TV the box. They're the kind of,
I love this. I don't even need to criticize him. I can just let him talk out his ass. And everybody here, especially anybody who is right-wing conservative, who identifies with this culture of the Kents, who may even have friends, maybe you aren't a rich, maybe you're the down-home salt of the earth, and I want you to think about your friends, your family, your mom, your dad. I want you to think about them and, oh, I'm a farmer and this is why I love the Kents or whatever. I want you to think about what Ben is saying about the Kents and their perspective here and what that says.
down home types who don't seem to, they live in a kind of a crappy house. They're the kind of people who call the TV the box. They're the kind of folks who are sitting around and kind of scratching their butts. They're purposely cast as ugly and non-noble. It doesn't mean everything.
Wow. Wow. Ugly and non-noble. What is like noble? So nobility is literally just class. Nobility is literally just rich upper class things. Nobility has nothing to do with, again, morality and or character of spirit or of anything like that. And the character of an individual. Nobility is literally can only be seen and acknowledged through literally being a noble, a rich noble. Wow, Ben.
I say is bad. It isn't, but, and by the way, both of them are alive in this. Ugly and non-noble. It doesn't mean everything I say is bad. It isn't, but.
Doesn't mean that everything they say is bad, but it, like, again, all that right there just doesn't matter. Look at the way oh man, that's telling.
And by the way, both of them are alive in this, right? The original Superman mythos is that Pa Kent dies, and that's what sends Superman on his journey. Anyway, Crypto. The super dog is a terrible dog, is a dog that does not, like an idiot dog.
Yeah, that's literally Crypto. The dude, it's literally fucking Crypto. Crypto's an asshole. He always is. He's an unruling dog. He's a well-meaning and nice enough dog, but he's also a playful little ass. Like, what do you want? That's Crypto.
Like, way worse than my dog Happy. My dog Happy, way better than this dog, and my dog makes trouble. This dog is a mess. Supergirl, who you get introduced to for a hot second at the very end, Supergirl is a drunken teenage brat.
Yeah, because she's a young teenager. Yeah, the spoiler there, Supergirl is introduced. Yes, she comes in. Like, yes, congratulations. Supergirl is immature. Because Supergirl, at least in this timeline, and this looking at this, we are presenting with Supergirl as being kind of still a girl. She is young. She is, well, I mean, technically she is, I believe, older than Superman, but like due to like fucking suspended animation or some shit. I don't know what fucking their explanation for it is in the comic books, or because it probably changes from here to there. But again, she is like psychologically and just kind of physically, she is younger than Superman by a fair bit. Superman is what, mid late 20s around here. He's kind of on the younger side of Superman. And she is definitely teens, early adult. She is, yeah. So what? it's done for a little bit of humor. She has nothing to do here. He wants to kind of show this, so like, oh hey, yeah, I have this extra character here, it's kind of fun or whatever. But again, like, you're getting pissed off because Supergirl is is doing what fucking a ton of average, perfectly fine American girls and college girls have done. She got she went to a party and got drunk a little bit, but she's not like crazy. It's not like she's just fucking sucking 37 dicks on her way to the fucking Fortress of Solitude. Clerks shout out. Um, like, again, it's not like she literally just comes back from a like, she was out in space doing a party thing, and she comes back like, oh, this is showing her for being a nothing but a drunken whore. It's like, god damn, the fucking weird puritanical myopic hatred that Ben always displays.
For a hot second at the very end, Supergirl is a drunken teenage brat. Right? Like, anything that you think you know about the Superman
She's not even that bratty. Like, again,
universe, James Gunn is determined to debunk in the first.
you have, oh, right, let's go for that comment right there.
Right? Like, anything that you think you know about the Superman universe, James Gunn is determined to debunk in the first half hour of the.
Okay, so maybe for the most common denominator person who doesn't really know anything about Superman other than the vague cultural reference, like, I know Mario, I think he's a Nintendo character, I know Superman, like, they don't know, they don't have, at that point, the vast majority of common people don't really have any expectation for what Superman or Supergirl will be, or Mr. Terrific or anything like that. They have the most vague concept of it, and for the most part, the movie hits all of those points. It adds a bunch of stuff, adds a little bit here and there that these people wouldn't know, but that are common aspects and our archetypical tropes and or narrative bits and pieces from the comic book mythos to the movie, like Crypto being kind of an asshole, because Crypto's an asshole. I'm sorry, Ben, that you don't actually know anything about fucking Superman. Crypto's an asshole, and a big feature of Supergirl in the dynamic of Supergirl and Superman, especially when we're looking at the storylines that tend to look at their early relationship, is that Supergirl is a bit, again, she's young, she's immature, she's sometimes a bit naive. She's also a young woman because she wants to, like, have fun. You know, girls just want to have fun. Like, she wants to go have fun occasionally here and there, and like, Superman is a little bit more mature than her, and that these things are not at all subversive and or strange at all. They're not subversive to Superman or cultural and ideological position of Superman. They're subversive to your extraordinarily narrow puritanical Judeo-Christian values. And even then, they aren't subverting them that much. They're just subverting them by looking at, here's what reality is. Pa Kent, John Kent and fucking Martha Kent, they're not going to look like, if they were real, they're not going to look like Kevin Costner and Diane Lane. They're going to look like normal fucking people. And normal fucking people are not Hollywood star beauty. And they're also going to have the culture of normal fucking people, which means that they like watching TV. They live quiet lives. They're not that expansive. They just have a good heart. They have a good, solid, decent heart. That's their entire purpose, is that they give Superman a grounding point of humanity and decency. And they do exactly that. And you just are forced, you want Superman, and you've told yourself so many times Superman is all these American values, and then you see what these are American values and they are good. You just don't align with them. So you have a choice. Either you can say, I'm not particularly American, am I? I'm not in support of truth, justice, and the American way. if this is the American way, I'm clearly not in favor of the American way. I'm in favor of some other way. In this case, a very authoritarian, Judeo-Christian, restrictive, puritanical, most likely bigoted and or sexist, and a whole host of fucking holdovers. That's his way. That's Ben Shapiro's way. And now he's forced to confront, well, here's a Superman movie. I align with this? Superman should align with it, but Superman's not aligned with him. So the problem is either with you, Ben, or it must be some subversion that somebody else corrupted. There was a conspiracy to corrupt Superman and the way he's presented. So that's why I don't align with Superman in this movie. Or you are the asshole, Ben.
Film. I think that it's a betrayal of the original IP and mildly upsetting. Not like hugely upsetting, but mildly upsetting.
Again, you don't know the original IP. Shut the fuck up.
That is my critique of James Gunn. He is not the right person for this film because James Gunn is not capable of delving. He's just not. He's not capable of delving into a single character and examining his motivations and what's interesting about that character. He can't do it with Superman. He can't do it with Lois. He can't do it with Lex. Instead, he decides he's just going to toss everything in.
What do you mean? He kind of does. Like, yeah, you have a problem with the ensemble thing, but like, he does actually do this a fair bit. You get an understanding both through his actions and his words, kind of the motivations and understanding of Superman and of a degree of Lois Lane. Because again, she's a smaller side character. She's not there. And Lex, yeah, you get plenty with Lex. What are you?
To the stew. And so you end up with this sort of ADHD film where a bunch of things are going on at the same time, but you never get a good, interesting perspective on anybody who's in the film. So Green Lantern is there.
No, you do. It's just you disconnected from any of the good, interesting introspection because it is antithetical to your ugly, fucking hateful position.
Going on at the same time, but you never get a good, interesting perspective.
He's going to say something about Green Lantern. I'm kind of curious what he says about Guy Gardner.
Perspective on anybody who's in the film. So Green Lantern is there, and he's kind of just a schmuck, and he's there to as comic relief. And then
okay. Oh. Guy Gardner's just there, and he's just a schmuck and for comic relief. That shows how this movie doesn't understand and James Gunn doesn't understand who Guy Gardner is, because he just shows Guy Gardner is a schmuck and B kind of comedic relief. Ah, shit. Oh, fuck me. That's fucking good. If you needed to know anything about how much of a poser ass bullshit, I don't actually know jack shit about what I'm talking about. How much Ben Shapiro is that? He thinks a movie depicting Guy fucking Gardner, Green Lantern Guy fucking Gardner, as kind of a schmuck, as an asshole schmuck, and a bit of a comic relief. He thinks that's inaccurate. Shit. That's good.
Who's in the film. So Green Lantern is there, and he's kind of just a schmuck, and he's there as comic relief. And then you have Mr. Terrific, who's the actual hero of the film, who you learn nothing about other than he's just kind of a noble do-gooder fellow. And you have all these...
Oh my god. You missed. My god, you're terrible at this. There's tons of small characterization and personalization of him. And again, I'm sorry, you don't get a ton of information on him. The movie spends tons of time with Superman, but it's not enough. And then it spends a little bit of time with these guys, but it's not like, again, it's an ensemble, you can't do anything. Like, you get enough, and again, you're not really supposed to get a ton about these characters. You get enough to understand some aspects of their character archetype, but again, this is primarily a Superman movie, so the character that you get, the characterization, is to help contrast them to Superman. You characterize Superman with the little bit of characterization you do of Mr. Terrific, of Guy Gardner, of fucking Hawk Girl. I actually forget what her actual like non-superhero name is. Also for Mr. Terrific, I don't remember fucking all actually. If he even has none, it may just be Mr. Terrific. But I actually don't know. I know he's a fun character, and I've seen him in some stuff here and there, but I don't know too much about him.
Superheroes who are wandering around. You never get any information about them that makes them interesting or sympathetic or even particularly cool. But you don't know the motivation.
What would make them cool or sympathetic to you, Ben? Would it be looking at how they have personal and personal troubles and things that are not necessarily just challenged to them superhero wise, but challenged to them in a way that it challenges their morality, their psychology, their backgrounds, their opinions, beliefs, and thoughts? You know, kind of like the challenges that you say subvert Superman. What do you want, Ben?
Of any of the villains, except for Lex, who it turns out is just really kind of jealous of Superman because Superman has superpowers, and Lex is like, I'm really smart, and Superman is really strong, so why do people like Superman more than they like me? Which is a pretty boring motivation.
That's literally it. Like you say, I'm sorry, that is what you didn't understand that you got it, but like you just don't. What I don't get it. I don't understand you, Ben. How are you this thick and dense? That's kind of the whole thing. Lex is constantly trying to say that he's more complex and smarter and greater, and that his rivalry with Superman is this great complex, like humanity versus this alien foreign invader who makes us feel small or blah, blah, blah. But kind of the core thing that usually always goes back to the basic archetypical thing is that Lex is just kind of a hating bitch, which is the great irony. For all of his intelligence, for all of his great success or whatever, he is just a fucking loser. He is a born fucking loser. The reason he is smart and rich, ultimately, like, okay, the smartness may be some degree of innateness and some genius level intellect, but really the only reason he's super successful and super powerful, at least a good chunk of it, is genuine fucking luck. Like, he's not this chosen one. He wants to present all these things like he's this self-made man. He's all this power and blah, 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 blah. It's not. Lex is, again, all of that is just this mythos that Lex wraps around himself to make him seem amazing. He is literally an Elon Musk, to where you're like, oh, he's this amazing genius, whatever. But you actually start breaking down like, no, he's like, he might be, and then at least in the case of Lex versus Elon Musk, he is really, really, really smart. For various reasons that comic books sometimes change the reasons back and forth, but he's really, really smart. Yeah. He's got a great grasp on, like knowledge and the ability to learn stuff, but he is at the core, his actual psychology, his actual like personality, he is pretty fucking simple. He is a basic bitch. And his resentment, his absolute fucking resentment, is in many ways, especially even in the Richard Donner movies, kind of make it pretty simple. And I'm surprised he's not bringing up the fact that Lex Luthor in the Richard Donner movies, I would need to go back and watch them again, but I seem to remember he being fairly comedic and goofy. Like, you're talking about how all this comedy, James Gunn, is wrong because it's undermining, the mythos of Superman. But then you point to the Richard Donner one, where like Lex is pretty goofy and silly. He's kind of almost Joker-esque, like old school Joker. Like he's silly. And again, he's just a vain fucking rich boy prick. Maybe that's why you really hate this characterization and pointing out of Lex Luthor, is because it's like looking in a fucking mirror. Decently intelligent, extraordinarily privileged person who is resentful of all the jocks and all the other people in this world because you're just a resentful hater bitch. I'm sorry that you might have seen yourself in Lex Luthor, but that's on you, buddy. I don't know what to say to you. Okay. It's again, he's talking about how it's like it's not following the canon of the original Superman comics. Is like that is kind of Lex. Like no matter how much he tries to play it up, Lex at his core, he's just kind of a hater bitch. To put it in to put in kind of crass terminology, he's just kind of a fucking lame hater loser who, like, again, he's literally the rich. My dad owns a dealership. He's that. He's smart and intelligent and richer, but ultimately he's that same kind of villain from the old like teen movies, or like the jock, rich, popular kid, who's only popular because he's kind of rich and conventionally handsome to a certain degree, and he's a bully, and he's just like, my dad owns a dealership. You don't know who you're messing with. That's Lex. He's smart or whatever, but you unwrap him, much like if you unwrap Superman, ultimately at the core, he's a relatively simple kind of character archetype. He's just a good guy trying to do good. Lex at his core, he's at the core relatively simple. He's just kind of a narcissistic, whiny, spoiled child who's pissed off that other people are getting attention. He's a queen bee in high school. He never grew up from it. He's just kind of a hater. I'm sorry. That's just the core of him. Again, I'm sorry if you're staring into a mirror here, Ben. Don't worry. I'm sure you won't go bald like Lex. You'll have that on him.
To be frank. So the characters are complete pastiches. They're just cardboard cutouts. Even the moments that are supposed to hit don't hit because there's so much going on in the background, because James Gunn cannot control his ADHD. He just cannot.
I think he was pooping his brains out for the next 36 hours.
There's a scene where Clark and Lois, they've had a fight, and now they're back together, and they're having a talk. And it's supposed to be this very intimate talk where they're speaking with each other. And literally outside the window, Green Lantern and Mr. Terrific and Hawk Girl are fighting a gigantic sort of eye monster that looks like it's from Suicide Squad.
Stop it right there, Joker. You'll never get me, Batman! Will you catch him?
It's extremely distracting because he's James Gunn and everything has to be some sort of dumb joke. You're like, well, shouldn't Superman be doing something about it? No, let them handle it. Again, that...
But, it's not necessarily a joke, but it's also, like, again... For somebody who's doing culture, you don't realize that, okay, maybe it doesn't hit as hard as it needs to, but have you thought about what is the significance of two things? One, you want to say that these characters are not very important or whatever, but it's like, okay, they're obviously powerful enough and good enough that they can handle this threat. And again, Superman is okay with them handling it without him getting involved. But then let's think about it, like Superman gets involved. So this is a low moment for him. This is a moment where he is questioning things, a quiet moment. And again, in the background, you have kind of this omnipresent aspect of, even when he wants to have a quiet moment to talk with Lois and not necessarily just make up, but also just talk about his problems, there's constant this overarching meta-narrative style threat, this kind of meta threat that it is difficult. And sometimes it is even almost feels wrong for Superman to take a moment to think about his life and think about what's going on and what he needs to do and the importance, because we just expect him to always be involved in every goddamn thing. How did you miss it, Ben? Like, that's kind of it's literally the background. In the foreground, we have the personal thing, but the big background meta thing that is constantly hanging over his head, that's hanging over all of these characters' heads, that's hanging over the entire movie, is this conflict, this problem of, I want to do what's right, but like it's difficult to do and be a person and have a personal life, but it's also difficult to manage and juggle these things. It's difficult. And again, he's in enough of a state that he's not going out to help. He knows that, they'll be able to handle it, so that's why he's somewhat reassured, but still, like, you seem to ignore that Superman fights, small spoiler, Superman fights this giant fire-breathing alien creature thing that I think is created by Lex, that distract and cause problems and shit like that. But all the other League members, or Justice Gang, as Guy Gardner wants to call them, they're all fighting with the general intent of destroying the creature. And Superman's constantly trying to, like, he's keep making these comments like this. How do we, how do we take this? Like, maybe we can move it away and I can knock it out, or how do we incapacitate this to where we like keep it alive? Because he wants to, even with this giant rampaging Godzilla fucking monster, he doesn't want to kill it. That's how good Superman is that even when he's dealing with these things, he doesn't want to kill any of this stuff. He doesn't want it to die. He wants to, at most, like, put it in a zoo to where it can be studied and maybe eventually find a home planet to send it back to, because he thinks it's like some kind of alien creature, which it might be, or genetically modified. Doesn't matter. I don't remember where Lex gets it and what he does with it. But like, and again, so you contrast that to him sitting in this room, not joining in. Like, how do you just not get any of this? This is how shallow and narrow and goal-orientated his critique is.
And everything has to be some sort of dumb joke. You're like, well, shouldn't Superman be doing something about it? No, let them handle it. Again, that's irritating. As far as the plot itself makes very little sense. The plot is basically that Lex Luthor has decided that he is going to make a deal with a foreign politician who the left wants to believe is both Vladimir Putin and Benjamin Netanyahu, but actually is just kind of nothing, is going...
I like how he wants to believe in the Benjamin Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin. So again, this fake president, this invading force, is got some Russian coding to it, but it also, because of what it's going for and kind of its location, it also has some degree of Middle Eastern-ish kind of coding, kind of aesthetic to it. Right now we have two, and we've had for several years now, two very prominent acts of aggression to where a foreign power is invading and or fighting with a smaller power, whether we take Russia and the invasion of Ukraine, and or you take the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the again, the disproportionate power dynamic in that kind of conflict, which is also emphasized pretty clearly in this conflict between these fake nations. I can't remember what they're called. Like, one's called like Bavaria or Borovaria, or I don't know, some shit like that. But I don't remember. It doesn't really matter. But like, and like, oh, they're trying to see this, and it's so completely, utterly simplistic. It's like this, that, again, that would be like saying, like, well, I mean, it's clear and obvious that there's no like Nazi Germany coding to the Empire in the first Star Wars movies or in the first trilogy. Sure, their uniforms kind of look Nazi-ish, but it's clearly not. There's no at all allusions to like a Nazi empire and or a somewhat American empire taking over and control. Like, that's nothing. No, of course not. Like, well, really? You sure about that one? You sure about that one? Oh, these leftists are trying to make this connection. It's not even there. Are you sure about that one? Yeah. That's the level of cope we're dealing with here.
To believe is both Vladimir Putin and Benjamin Netanyahu, but actually is just kind of nothing, is going to invade another country. And Superman stops that invasion. Apparently, Lex wants to use this as an excuse to box up Superman, saying that he's running counter to American foreign policy. Now, we've seen that iteration in other movies, right? That was in Batman versus Superman. You've seen it in other versions of the Superman story, but it's not really taken kind of to its ultimate extreme politically. And
what would that entail?
in any case, it turns out that what he really wants is to annex half of this separate country. He's going to split it with this other dictator. One major plot hole. Lex Luthor is obviously the smartest person in the film. So smart, he can create his own universes. Is a major plot point. And he is concerned about a relative...
He's not really creating other universes, and it's obviously very, very unstable. What he's kind of doing is more this portal prison thing is more of a portal to like an interdimensional area, but he doesn't really have like he can kind of create stuff in there, but there's no land or whatever. And like, well, one, there's no people that live in there. It's kind of like this dark, weird place. A standard like dark interdimensional space aesthetic. Like nobody really wants to build an empire in an empty fucking location. And we'll see Ben say something that's about to be pretty stupid here.
Create his own universes is a major plot point.
Because I know where he's going with this.
And he is concerned about a relatively small piece of land occupied by third worlders. This is his big plan.
No, Ben. As he quite clearly states at the end of the movie, that is not Lex's plan. And again, you might take this as a throwaway kind of comment, but from Lex's perspective, this is his thing. You know, people accuse him like, you started this whole thing. You wanted to use this conflict as a reason to kill me and to cause all this conflict and to, disrupt, the Justice League and the, Superman so that I could be sidelined and or allowed to be killed. And then you could take Bavaria. And you set this all up just so you could take this half of this country. And Lex pretty clearly says like, no. I set up all of this and said I was going to take half this country and arranged all this so that I could kill you. It's not about Lex doesn't want the country. Like, yeah, obviously he wants it because, more power and it allows him to express his domination and his control. And I'm sure he can use it to build new bullshit fucking factories and or mansions. And again, what's good? Like, why would I build a country and a city in an empty space that is got nobody there? Again, Lex's ego. He needs people to see it. He needs people to know he won and beat them. So one, even if his goal was to take the country, of course he's going to want to take a country where it's populated. That's the whole fucking point, because he wins. Why would he want to build a city and or a country in a place nobody occupies? He's not beating anybody there. He's not winning. And two, Lex even quite explicitly says he doesn't care about taking this small country, even getting half of it. Sure, he's going to get that, and I'm sure that's nice, wonderful, whatever. But that's icing on the cake. The true goal is that he wants to create a scenario. He wants to create such chaos. He wants to create this opportunity to have the U.S. government and the world and everything allow him to kill Superman. And to see it as just, because it's not good enough for him to kill Superman. He needs everybody to know he's better than Superman and he's good. He doesn't want to see this as the evil triumphing over good. He wants to see it as him, the smart guy, triumphing over the dumb brute and the ugly guy. He wants to be the hero, not because he likes being a hero, but just because it's this ego thing. How did you miss this, Ben? I watched it one time. You might have only watched it one time, but he pretty explicitly says this. And it's also pretty obvious from the get-go that, yeah, sure, this is all this big old plot to get this land. He's starting this war, working with this, all this kind of stuff to manipulate the American government and all the other governments so that he can get half of this for this fictional country after it's conquered and destroyed. This fictional Palestine, he will get half of it. Yeah, but or this fictional Ukraine, whichever one you want to pick. But again, it's pretty obvious like this. Look, there's at most, even before Lex says this, everybody in the watching the movie knows Lex has two goals. He wants this country, sure, but he wants Superman dead. Desperately. He wants Superman to die and for Superman and everyone to acknowledge that Lex Luthor is the smartest, biggest, coolest dude around. How do you miss that? That's like the character.
And later it turns out that he said, oh, no, I started that war just so that I could get people to turn against Superman. Okay, well, he does that halfway through the film. And then he jails him, and then he leaves him alive and explains this secondary plan that apparently was his primary plan, sort of. But he doesn't kill Superman at the time.
Because, again, you could easily see this. he wants to kill Superman, but it needs to be public. He needs to, and again, so what? Like, okay, I've won with my primary goal. I'll focus on my secondary goal, get the secondary goal done. Then I'll go back to the primary. Oh, why doesn't he just kill him? Because he needs the validation. He wants to, again, he's a fucking rich prick. He wants to torment, torture, and fuck with Superman. That's not necessarily a plot hole. And it's not even like, again, you might even say, oh, well, this character does a dumb decision in this movie. It's like, well, yeah, we can see some contrivance necessarily in the movie to have the plot move forward along a particular direction. But again, you kind of have to accept that movies will make contrivances in such a manner. And again, secondaries, like, you just don't seem to understand, like, Lex Luthor is the ultimate hater. Everybody can acknowledge this. Everybody who's a fan of the comics or of the medium knows that Lex Luthor is the all-time galaxy's greatest fucking hater. And his object of his hate is Superman. He needs Superman to lose in every possible way. He needs Superman to suffer. He needs Superman to abandon his values. He needs Superman to become a bad guy. He needs Superman to become a pathetic weasel. He needs him depowered. He needs all of this. Nothing will satisfy him. He needs to constantly beat down Superman in every possible way, and then he kills him. Because he is ultimately very insane, and he's also very fucking kind of, in many ways, silly. He is the ultimate hater.
A reason that remains undisclosed.
We hear that he killed 27 children, and you're always going to make mistakes, but that's how it is.
The entire plot is a
I don't understand this weird game, James Gunn. Like, he just keeps bringing in weird shit. I don't understand why Ben and his editors keep bringing in this weird stuff about Gunn, like these weird clips, these out of context statements. I don't get it. I don't know what he's going for here.
He killed 27
other than to just talk shit about James Gunn with absolutely no rational reason to do so, other than just kind of be weird about it.
Children, and you're always going to make mistakes, but that's how it is.
The entire plot is a complete mess. If you try to chart it, there's no way to do it, because
yes, there is. You just, again, it's messy because it's a standard superhero movie, and they're all a little messy, but at the same time, they're not that messy.
James Gunn doesn't care about plot. James Gunn doesn't care about characters. James Gunn cares about jokes and aesthetics. That's what James Gunn cares about.
Nobody cares anymore.
It's very difficult to make Clark a hero in a situation in which the plot is a complete mess. And again, that's not a rip on Nicholas Hoult, who I love in everything. I think he's great. Or David Corenswet or Rachel Brosnahan. That's a rip on James Gunn as a script writer. It's just not a good script. Okay.
Coming from like an absolute failure of a script writer. Like I'm not any better. I'm probably way worse than him, but it just, I feel like it is a bit ironic coming from somebody whose initial career was to try to be in Hollywood as a script writer and kind of like be some Hollywood writer thing. And he fucking bombed terribly. That's why he went into kind of this political commentary bullshit.
Okay, we'll get to more of this Superman review, this overlong and overcritical Superman review in a moment. First,
but it's not particularly critical. That's the thing, Ben. Like, you don't understand critical. Critical isn't just being a hater. Critical, like, you have to show your work, as I have said a billion times. Like, you have to kind of explain why this doesn't work. And you haven't. You just said, I don't like this because it's X. But then you don't explain why it is X, what about X is bad, and how this is showing X in its nature. Like, and because, again, you don't actually know how to do critique. Oh, player broke.
Activity. Everything gets sent through.
Just skip past all of this bullshit. I don't need your ExpressVPN crap. Now it's
James Gunn has
there we are.
An addiction to kind of gross and weird imagery, which doesn't really fit in the context of the, again, Americana that is Superman.
Gross and weird imagery, an obsession with gross and weird. What?
And so there's some really gross and weird images, particularly in the Pocket universe, where you have characters who are turning themselves into weird tentacly octopuses, and you have people's eyes being attacked on a wide variety of it. He has an obsession with eyes, James Gunn. And
what the fuck is he talking about? Weird. Like, people turn into tentacly, like, one, The guy I think he's trying to reference there is turning into tentacle monsters. The guy who's literally a shapeshifter who kind of doesn't really have he has a corporeal body, but he has like the ability to turn it into any type of element he wants. I can't remember which character it is. It's like, I don't think it's Absorbing Man. I can't remember what the fuck that character is. But he's able to like turn his body. He's just like an ultimate shapeshifter in that he not only can change his shape, but he can change the actual atomic like material of his body, which is why he's able to create kryptonite, which is he's basically put in the same cell. And obviously Superman is depowered by the green kryptonite. The attacking of the eyes, like, again, that's kind of I think he's referring to when this may be small spoilers, I don't care. Superman gets lasered in the eyes for a little bit. But that's like a classic kind of like move, like that's been done many times, to where like somebody lasers somebody and their eyes are closed, and they get like little scorch marks around their eyes, like, that kind of hurt, that stung. Like that's a pretty common thing. Like that's not really gross body imagery. Like what? This is just weird. Like, I don't know.
People's eyes being attacked on a wide variety of it. He has an obsession with eyes, James Gunn, and you can see it in Suicide Squad. He has like an obsession with the eyeball being pierced, and it's very strange and off-putting. My wife was very off-put by a lot of this imagery.
Your wife was off-put by this imagery? Off-put by what imagery? The imagery in Suicide Squad, which is a rated R film? Or off-put by the extremely PG stuff in Superman? That's honestly just unclear on his part. But it's like, he's crazy with eyes. Like he's done like a couple of scenes with eyes, but like it's pretty obvious that plot narrative aspect, like it kind of makes sense. Okay.
Pierced, and it's very strange and off-putting. My wife was very off-put by a lot of this imagery. It feels like psychedelic LSD CGI vomit is what.
What the fuck is wrong with him? What the fuck is wrong with you, Ben? God damn, you are such a weird dude, man. God, you're weird. You are so weirdly repressed, and that's odd. That's just an odd thing.
It feels like for large portions of the film, you never really get a kinetic scene of Superman doing something cool. You have multiple scenes of giant heavy objects falling on Superman, and Superman stopping the giant heavy objects from falling to save an individual. Again, another plot hole. You'll have giant building. The entire building will fall, and he will stop the building from falling to save one person or a chipmunk who is in the way. But it's an entire building full of people, so presumably all...
Were there people in there? Again, here's your question. Like, again, also now you're pissed off. I'm sorry, this happens all the time in stuff like fucking Dawn or whatever. And yes, congratulations. This is one of those weird little things that they do for cinematic extravagance. But you want him to have a cinematic extravagant superhero saving the day thing. But then like, I don't want the building to fall. Like, that's just silly and stupid. Again, none of this has any cohesion. His arguments don't have cohesion to any degree. They're just reflexive, angry. I need to find something to hate. So I'm just going to find anything, any trope. I'm just going to throw shit at the wall because I want to hate this movie. And again, part of the reason that this is important, actually, of like, why is he saving all these individual things? One, you might be able to infer whenever you're not seeing Superman, he's probably doing this, because that's a good big thing the movie kind of emphasizes, that Superman is more concerned with saving people than fighting. Primarily because when he fights, usually the fight ends and he fucking wins. He kicks the shit out of something. And even when he doesn't win, he probably will win because he's Superman. But again, this is kind of the human aspect, is that he will save everybody. Or try to save everybody. He's the type of person, and again, he's a human. Sometimes he can't save everybody, but he'll still try to save the little girl. He'll still try to save these things. While all the other heroes are more concerned with the greater good. Well, it's okay if we don't save this little girl who's about to be crushed and killed by these things, because if we kill the monster, it'll save all these people. You can even see this as a fallacy, as a problem of Superman, is that Superman is very human. very individualistic in the sense that he will save everybody. He will stop fighting. And maybe this is even worse in the long run, which is, again, part of the debate and the argument that people try to bring up with this, is that Superman will try to save the individuals, and maybe he might lose the war because he's so focused on trying to save people in the battle. That's like the conflict that people are trying to argue with him, maybe to some degree. I think Lois brings this up a little bit. But the big thing is that he's just a good guy. And it's just not in his nature to let a little girl die for the greater good. It's not in his nature.
To save one person or a chipmunk who is in the way, but it's an entire building full of people, so presumably all those people are dead. In any case, the visuals, I think, are a problem. The music, again, John Williams is still alive. Just hire him to do your Superman movie.
Again, fuck off with your stupid, I'm a nerd, everybody, all the nerds love John Williams. Why don't you just hire John Williams? I don't like the music. He doesn't give a shit about the music. He didn't even notice it. He didn't notice it good or bad. He didn't notice, he doesn't care. He's just going to say this because somebody said the music isn't good because it doesn't have John Williams in it, because some other right-wing chud who's, again, glorifying the past says, it has to be John Williams, otherwise it's not good music.
You stupid. Just stop it.
Get some help.
I get very exercise. This is the only thing that really exercises me.
You don't give two flying fucks at all. You don't give two flying fucks. You don't get exercised. You're, again, just doing this performative nonsense of, all of the fucking incel right-wing fucking douchebags who hate woke media shit. They're constantly harping on some fucking nuanced little thing like, it's not John Williams, it's not this, it's not the thing that I recognize, it's not my standard, fucking Cheerios, you didn't get the right brand. It needs to be this brand, otherwise it's not good. Blah. Again, you're just playing to that audience that is just silly. You don't have values on this matter.
About this. John Williams, his original Superman score is one of the great scores in all of movie history. It is a phenomenal score, beginning
It's fine.
to end. It may be John Williams' best score. I love that score so much. It is a great, great score. It is.
You don't give two shits. You don't fucking care. And more importantly, this is just pure nostalgia. It's like, it's not Superman John Williams score, ergo it can't be good. I don't know. To this perspective, me always pisses me off. Because, like, look, I'm sorry, maybe I'm just too eclectic in my taste, but I like a lot of things. And I can appreciate the value of a lot of things, even if I can appreciate the value of B, even if value B has absolutely nothing in common with A, which I also really like. There is no overlap, necessarily. Or if there is overlap, it's an overlap of a much larger structure. But A and B are very unique and do not overlap with each other. Again, this is just this weird myopic, everything has to be exactly the way I like it.
Magic. And what do? They take the original theme and they play a few notes from it because it's so iconic, and then they underscore it with nothing, with like a pedal tone. It sucks. The music is awful. The score is terrible. Just play the original score. The original score is good. The original score is magic. You feel the magic when Superman flies in the original score. Like, what are you doing? Okay, then we get to the actual politics. So I know this is what people are waiting for. They're waiting for my political rip.
Yeah, honestly, like, because your cultural stuff sucks fucking ass.
On this film. So we've been told this is a movie about illegal immigration. Not really. Honestly, like, you have to look to find that. There's
Not really. Again, that is a core aspect of that, and they express it several times in the movie, somewhat explicitly, is that he is an alien. People like you like to assume he represents truth, justice in the American way, but you also conveniently ignore he's a fucking alien. And a lot of people do that. He is not human. He's an alien. He's as much of an alien as Martian Manhunter. In fact, he's more of an alien than Martian Manhunter, because Martian Manhunter comes from Mars. At least he's in the same fucking solar system. Krypton isn't. Krypton's light years away. Krypton is very far away. He's not even in the same fucking solar system. He is as alien as you can get. You know that alien Starro that you just showed from the Suicide Squad, where, you know, the big old starfish thing? He's as much as a fucking human as Superman is. Physiologically, okay, well, he looks human. Yeah, but he's not human at all. Biologically, he is an alien. And more importantly, from a nationalistic kind of borders thing, he's an alien. In fact, he's technically an undocumented alien who illegally fucking immigrated into the United States. I don't think he ever took a citizenship test. You know, he's just a baby dropped in, you know, young child dropped into a, you know, American farmland. And then the Kents, those illegal bastards, harbored an illegal alien and tried to con the American people out of their taxpayer monies to support this illegal alien. He should have been deported immediately, Ben. According to your standards. And again, he's not being honest here. Like this whole thing. And again, that also plays into like his alienship. The fact that you literally brought up, oh, his parents are, sent him here as a foreign dictator. And I guess, oh, you're so upset that because it changed the original story. But like, look, if they changed the original story, then in this version of the story, it is clear that there is some kind of immigrant narrative. Certainly some degree of migrant narrative or something like that. Like, and again, this foreigner who came to this planet, who is not of Earth, who apparently came here and his parents sent here with some degree of nefarious purpose. Like, again, that narrative and then the turning of people on him, because they're like, this is another foreign crazy alien that's trying to take over us. Just like them goddamn Mexicans. Like, again, it doesn't take that, like, does it feature incredibly high, like it's super 1-to-1? No, but again, for something to be an illusion or some degree of metaphor, it doesn't have to by literal definition. It's not going to be a 1-to-1 comparison.
One line where Clark is saying, aren't you going to read me my rights? James Gunn's politics is so ham-handed, like truly ham-handed.
There's more than a few lines. That's more than that, but okay.
That it doesn't even read as political. It just reads as stupid. So there's a moment where Clark, he's being arrested, and he says, aren't you going to read me my rights? And one of the members of the government says, well, you're now considered an enemy alien, right? You don't have any rights because you're not an American.
Yes. I'm sorry that the reason why you're trying to dismantle and say that this is nonsensical and stupid and it's just ham-handed, it's not even political, it's just dumb, we just need to move past it. The reason he's doing that is because that guy's statement is basically exactly what Ben Shapiro and his ilk say about all forms of immigrants, legal or otherwise. Even the legal ones, like this, you're here, but maybe not. I don't know. You're not quite American. Again, he just doesn't like it because it really points out he's a piece of shit. That's it. It has nothing to do whether or not this is a valid or invalid political statement or whether or not this is an allegory or metaphorical kind of thing, whether this is 1-to-1 and it actually ties into this or not. It doesn't matter. The reason he's rejecting it isn't based on its merits. It's based purely on the fact that he doesn't like the mirror that it puts up to him.
All right. If that's supposed...
And again, he's tired because, oh my God, that's just so silly and stupid. It's, again, he just doesn't like it because, yeah, the bad guys are doing exactly what you're doing. And it's not that nonsensical because you literally are doing this with... You're doing this with Mexicans who are illegal immigrants or Guatemalans. You're doing this with people who are from Earth, from a nation we recognize on Earth, from people from a language they recognize as a human language. You're somehow assuming like, well, we wouldn't do this with Superman. You would. Because he's even more of an alien, literal alien, than any of they are. Any of the other illegal aliens you point out.
To be some sort of like anti-ICE sentiment. It's really weak. Also, legally, incredibly stupid, considering that he came to Earth as a baby and then was adopted by an American family.
So, legally, he came as a baby. Technically, he didn't come as a baby, depending on what you're looking at. He came as a young child, like a 2 or 3 year old or something like that. Or a young thing, like a 1 or 2 year old, something like that. Depends on where you're putting it. Sometimes it's baby, sometimes not. But again, he came, so he's not formally adopted by the Kents. I don't believe so. It depends on the story thing here. This is maybe getting a little bit in the weeds and trying to give too much credit to Ben here, but I don't believe they ever actually file paperwork of adoption of this lost child. I believe that in most of the, this is kind of my, like the amalgamation of all the stories, what is the common kind of thing? I believe they generally kind of put it forward as that this is their kid, and because they're somewhat isolated, living on a farm, whatever, I think they just kind of present it as where Martha got pregnant, had a kid. We just didn't tell anybody because, we just kind of want to keep it ourselves, work our farm or whatever. And that's, they kept it secret. It's like this, oh, well, I guess it's just their kid, not like people don't really think about it. It's not really quite clear what they do. I don't believe they file this was a child we found on the side of the road and we're adopting it, and they file that paperwork with the fucking local sheriffs. They might have, but I don't know. I don't think so. And even then, again, his legal status, even if they adopted him and they said, oh yeah, he's adopted, we'll give him all this. Technically, from a legal standpoint, again, he wasn't born on this fucking planet. He came here illegally without any proper documentation. And then the Kents knowingly falsified records and or presented false evidence to get him legal papers and legal status under false pretenses. So from a legal standpoint, that no, you're kind of wrong, Ben.
Stupid, considering that he came to Earth as a baby and then was adopted by an American family, which would make him American.
No, you don't believe that at all. So if a child comes over as a baby and is adopted by an American family, it becomes an American citizen. Is that true? Now, I may not know. I may be wrong about immigration kind of sentiments, but if that baby is not adopted through proper adoption paperwork and is instead a pregnant Mexican woman as a baby, comes over, gives it to a white family. We'll just say white family, so Ben doesn't have an aneurysm trying to think of America as not white. And that white family then goes to the government and says, "We found this baby. We want to adopt it. It's ours." And then I guess the government just says, "Okie dokie. Here's some paperwork. It's yours." If it's later found out that no, the Kents absolutely took this baby from this Mexican woman because she gave it to them, for whatever reasons, raise this baby, please protect it. And then she dies, and then they do that. There might be some legal avenues to okay, well, technically you're not legal, all this, but let's just do some quick little paperwork. We'll acknowledge this, refile some stuff, and then we'll make your citizenship perfectly above board legal. But the types that would do that aren't you. The types that would do that are, again, more liberal, democratic style people who think, well, yes, the law is the law, but the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law should do there. So let's not quite fudge the numbers, but let's just do some quick little legal process to make this all legal and above board, because obviously this kid should be an American citizen. Ben Shapiro does not believe in that. His core ideology is absolutely anti that. So this whole, oh, you can't possibly be an illegal alien. And again, it also, do any of these laws extend to aliens? Ben? Have they been tested? Ben?
It was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country.
It was meant for the babies of slaves. Again, but those slaves were, it's just stupid. It wasn't meant for babies trying to come into the country. That's literally what he is. He's not a baby of a slave who is, again, an American. Again, the slaves were American citizens or as close to, or American property, depending on what point in time you're looking at. Either way, they have far stronger claim to an American identity than a Kryptonian from a fucking different solar system. Not just a different planet, different solar system. Different galaxy, I think. I don't know.
On a vacation.
I'm not messing around. I'm doing important stuff.
There's a suggestion that he says truth, justice, and the human way. I didn't catch that anywhere in the film. The sort of social media politics that social media is stupid and rigged by bots, which, I mean, I think everybody sort of agrees on at this point. And there's a really dumb visual joke where Lex has set up actual monkeys typing into computers as his bots. Like,
why is it dumb? Like, again, it's dumb, but like, you say like everybody agrees with this, and then like I have no doubt that Ben Shapiro would then on a different moment say that social media is dumb and filled with bots and it might as well be done with monkeys. Why can't James Gunn make a joke like that?
oh God. But that's so James Gunn. Again, it's all so, I can't, I just don't like James Gunn. I mean, I just be.
You don't like anything, Ben, and you don't like this because, again, the reason you don't like James Gunn is because he created a relatively okay movie that touches upon relatively lightly a couple of political positions that you are so fucking rabidly crazy about that you are absolutely incised. And now you have gone backwards to try to convince yourself that the reason you hate this is because James Gunn is terrible and all these other things. So you've built up this grand narrative of why this is terrible to cover for the fact that you got triggered.
Just to be, and again, I'm one of the people who, when James Gunn was first fired from the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise in July 2018 over bad old tweets, I actually defended him at the time. So it's not about like anything personal with James Gunn. I just don't like his movies very much. The other politics of the situation are supposedly this foreign policy thing. So the left is suggesting that the foreign policy conflict in which Superman engages is a stand-in for Israel and the Palestinians, or alternatively for Russia and Ukraine. So let me give you the geopolitical setup. The geopolitical setup here is that there is a country called Boravia, and this country called Boravia is run by...
I was pretty close with the Boravia. I was pretty close with that. All right, I remember that.
Essentially a corrupt dictator who's working with Lex Luthor, and it invades another sovereign country, Jarhanpur. Okay, and so...
That's the name, Jarhanpur. I knew it was a J, but I couldn't remember what it was.
So Superman stops that at the very beginning. Okay, like, and doesn't show him stopping it. He talks to Lois Lane about it. Fine. Okay, the idea is geopolitically that Boravia has been a longtime ally of the United States. Jarhanpur is a country where we don't know who it's allied with. And it may or may not be run by jihadis, but we don't know. Like, we don't know who it's run by. It doesn't matter. The only reason that Clark stops it, that Superman stops it, is he says because
People were going to die.
Which, as we'll get to in sort of my final breakdown of why this movie doesn't work and why...
I'm sorry. That doesn't work. Like, you may not like it because it's simplistic, but that is an overall critique of, again, Superman, and maybe it's a fair critique, but it's not like he's being deceptive or otherwise this is a improper understanding of Superman. This is Superman. All the good and flaws of Superman is that, again, he doesn't want people to die. And if he can stop a war from breaking out, whoever is on it, he'll do that. That means that sometimes, yeah, he's gonna stand in front of army tanks who want to go into a village and fucking blow it all to hell and back again for whatever reasons. He's gonna say no. He's gonna try not to kill anybody. He's gonna disable the tanks, and then he's gonna say, go home. Don't do this. He's gonna appeal to their better natures. The American good protect the weak. The strong who protect the weak, and he's going to appeal to their better natures, and that's Superman. And again, this whole setup, like, you can go into there's a lot more little subtle nuances that try to make it, yes, it is somewhat of a catch-all for, and quite frankly, it kind of does sound like a catch-all of, again, a Russian-Ukraine situation, but also somewhat of a Palestinian kind of flair to it, a Palestinian-Israel flair to it, which again, this idea, even though again, it's kind of being picked up by I'm not even sure if James Gunn 100% meant for it. There's some small little things right there, but overall you could see it as also just a general a corrupt larger country militaristically is using the fact that it is a politically and militarily useful for America, and they're exploiting that America's willingness to turn their blind eye to do horrific evil things. That's not that crazy to think of. Like, you could see that as Israel, you could see that as maybe some kind of Russia thing, you could see that even as like a Saudi Arabia thing or a fucking whatever thing. But it's not that outside the bounds there. And again, oh, the Superman is crazy because Superman wants to save people. Yeah.
No really good Superman movie has been made since '78.
What did he say?
I'll explain in a moment. The people of Jarhampur are brown.
Look at my African American over here.
The people of Bravia are white. Okay, so this is why
Kind of. Why? Sure. White coated. Yeah.
the left is reading this as Israel of the Palestinians. The reason it doesn't work that way is because we are not made aware that the people of Jarhampur are either wildly terrorism supportive, that they have participated in multiple terrorist attacks.
God, he is so fucking triggered by this. He is so triggered by this because even if we did, and again, just God, you could see how much of a fucking bigot he is. God damn, that's great. He is so triggered by this. And again, he seems to kind of misses that it doesn't matter if there were some jihadi kind of things. Maybe even if it was, Superman would still be, from a moralistic standpoint, kind of in the right. It's that just allowing this nation under relatively false bad pretenses or even some degree of justification to basically roll tanks in and slaughter. And again, he kind of misses it, is that the people that are about to be slaughtered are protesters, are people who are not armed like military combatants or anything like that for Jarhampur, but they are like, again, basically local villagers and protesters who are at the border protesting or otherwise angry at the invasion of their country, and they are relatively peacefully protesting there, and they're about to get slaughtered. That's where you see Green Lantern fucking up tanks with blasting out of the ground and shit like that. You see that in the trailer. That's kind of that moment, is that Green Lantern is there along with others to stop the encroaching invasion and the mass slaughter of innocent civilians who are explicitly coded as innocent. So even if this was true that they are jihadi, again, notice he says stuff like that, like it's again, he can't use any other terminology other than terminology that explicitly makes you think of again, big scary Muslim words. Again, this is just Zionist Ben, fucking genocide supporting Zionist Ben coming out to play.
Israel of the Palestinians. The reason it doesn't work that way is because we are not made aware that the people of Jarhampur are either wildly terrorism supportive.
And why would, like, all of them, all the people, all the time? Is that even true of is that true of anything, Ben? And even if it was somewhat true, like, we know, like, well, there's obviously going to be lots of people who are not, just like there's lots of people in America who are not pro-war with whatever country we're trying to go war with, but there are some who are, and maybe one side is winning over the other. But again, this is this reductive kind of, they either all are terrorists or none of them are, and if some of them are, then they're all terrorists.
That they have participated in multiple terrorist attacks on the people of Bravia. They're led by a corrupt dictatorship that murders gay people, right? None of that's in the movie, so it doesn't match up.
I hate the fact that Ben says they murdered gay people, because Ben's own ideological regime would do much the same. It might not outright murder them, but it'll do just about every other human rights abuse, such as incarcerate them as madmen and psychos and forcibly sterilize them. He absolutely would be behind that, because Ben believes being gay is a sin and should be punished. and should be restricted and should lead to you having your rights as a citizen be revoked to a certain degree because you're such a degenerate piece of shit. That's what Ben believes. So anytime Ben starts trying to talk about how making allusions to Hamas and any other extremist Islamist kind of factions that are going to kill, imprison, or otherwise torment and uh, be extremely harmful towards the gay community or LGBTQ community, remember that Ben Shapiro is literally just one or two steps away from that. Like, again, this is the guy who, like, this, oh, those people who just go out into the fields and kill the cattle with axes and then butcher them out in the fields. These are just barbaric, terrible, awful things. As they murder and slaughter these animals, they chase them down with spears like barbarians, like old barbarians, and then that's how they kill the cattle, is they kill it in the old barbarian way of chasing them with spears and chopping their heads off and then chopping them up, and then they take them inside and then they package them and send them to Walmart. The way they do this is barbaric. Then you might go, "Whoa, so you're a vegan and you don't believe in animals?" Well, no. I mean, I eat them all the time, and my factory that industrially murders chickens wholesale and kills thousands and thousands of cattle, we do it humanely by putting a bolt against their head, and we shoot the bolt into their brain. They instantly die, no pain and suffering. Then we slit the throat and bleed it out, and it die. And then we butcher it, and it's much more clean and sanitary. That's Ben. Ben thinks that that's an important distinction, and maybe it is in a very narrow kind of perspective. But I feel like, again, this is splitting hairs on this one. Ben does not give a shit about any gay people or LGBT community at all. So anytime he says this, remember, Ben would outlaw this way of life. And if you're outlawing it, that means that you believe that there should be some form of legal punishment against it. If Ben had his way.
Moravia, they're led by a corrupt dictatorship that murders gay people, right? None of that's in the movie.
And again, even if it was, the people that they show in the movie, the Jorhavians or whatever the fuck this country is, I literally just forgot the name of it. Jorab or Jorhavia or Boravia is the bad guys. The I don't remember what they're called. Jorhasian, whatever. The people, it is explicitly shows that the people that are going to be slaughtered, that are saved by Green Lantern and the others, are all unarmed civilians, which is why Ben wants to present this picture and kind of talk about what the people support or what they have as their nation and talk in generalities, because this is explicitly the problem he has with Palestine, is that he doesn't really want to look at the fact that maybe shooting innocent unarmed civilians is bad. Even if the nation and the government is corrupt and evil, maybe wholesale slaughtering innocent civilians who are unarmed and peacefully protesting or whatever, maybe that's bad.
So it doesn't match up that way. And the idea that Boravia is Israel in this iteration, like a longtime U.S. ally that's randomly invading countries for territorial gain, that does not match up to any of the facts on the ground that we know of at all.
Yeah, it does. They're just the facts that you refuse to acknowledge, but we'll ignore that.
That is not real. So maybe in left-wing brain, that's how it reads. I could see if you're a left-winger and you don't.
Yeah, left-wing brain. You have to have left-wing brain to think that a heavily armed and military superior nation, especially in the scene that they show that has tanks rolling in that are about to slaughter and deliberately shoot an unarmed child holding a fucking flag who is saved by Green Lantern, you have to have left-wing brain to think that maybe that soldier shouldn't, and the rest of those soldiers shouldn't just butcher these unarmed civilians. That's left-wing brain. You got to have left-wing brain to see that that's a bad thing.
Don't know anything about the situation, or you think a bunch of false things. You could read that.
Again, the absolutely genocidal, Zionistic fucking zealotry. This is why it's always important to look in the background of these people, because this might seem rash, like, oh yeah, this doesn't make any sense. No. The reason why this makes sense to you, Ben, and why it doesn't make sense to other people is that they don't have your extremism. Ben is an extremist. Hardcore, unabashed extremist.
Maybe. You could also read this as Russia-Ukraine because it's one sovereign country that's invading another sovereign country and because the leader of Moravia has a Russian accent. So I guess that if you have like poison left brain.
Notice how, again, he kind of leaves that one off there because he has nothing to say about that because he's not, he still isn't, like I'm pretty sure he's somewhat anti-Ukraine, but he's also like he has nothing to say about that. That didn't trigger him. Again, he saw this and he could see some of the small parallels of Israel-Palestine. And it triggered the fuck out of him.
The Russians are nuking us! Go! Go, go, go! We're all gonna go! Come on! The missiles are coming! They've lost their mind! Go! Get the
I'm sorry, are you trying to be culturally relevant by pulling and citing from a show that fucking hates you and that you hate because it is almost always dunking pretty hard? Like, it dunks on both sides, but it dunks pretty hard on right-leaning fucking insane conservative bullshit, and you fucking know it, but you're now all of a sudden trying to say, like, no, I like these things. I'm cool. Ben Shapiro hates fucking South Park.
But you certainly don't have to read it that way.
Why wouldn't? Why not? I don't have to, but if I do.
And I'm not going to read it that way because it's stupid and it doesn't make any sense politically.
Again, it doesn't make sense any politically. I'm a perfectly rational kind of person here. Perfectly rational. Yeah. God, Ben's funny when you look at him. He's just kind of a clown. Like, it's sad that people take him seriously, but he's as clowny as any fucking Alex Jones or Steven Crowder. He really is kind of a pathetic clown.
It makes no sense. Okay, so this brings me to my final point about this movie and all other Superman movies. The fundamental flaw in all Superman movies of my lifetime is
All right, we're going to see it. What is the fundamental flaw? Let's hear it.
other Superman movies. The fundamental flaw in all Superman movies of my lifetime is the thing that Hollywood cannot say and will not do.
Politics, does he still stand for truth, justice, all that stuff?
The only Superman movie that I have ever seen that uses truth, justice, and the American way.
He's really triggered about them not saying the American way. The American way. Well, here's the problem, Ben, is that the American way, sadly, a lot of people have realized that the American way, America doesn't practice the American way in many cases. And if we were to take into account what is the true American way, and we take into all of that, the good and the bad, we would realize Superman doesn't do the American way because Superman does not do the really nasty, ugly parts of the American way that the American way does. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have him say, well, he should say truth, justice in the American way. You nationalistic, weird, fucking crazy Judeo-Christian nationalist fucking prick of a human being. He can't say that because one, he's a global superhero, to just put it as bluntly as possible. And two, Superman, like, I'm sorry that America has moved away from its American values. Like, you have moved away from American values. That's the problem. You and a lot of your fucking mean, vicious, horrid, disgusting, fucking sycophantic followers and interlocutors, you guys moved away from the American values. You guys don't believe in American values. You believe in American empire. You believe in corporate power. You believe in a lot of fucking things, but none of them align with any of the ideas of truth or justice. You don't believe in any of those things. You don't believe in truth and you don't believe in justice at all. And you don't believe in the American way of giving people a fair shake, helping people out, being, again, the land of immigrants. It's fucking literally in, like, almost all of us for a long time. Again, it stopped being talked about as an American value because conservative, white, nationalist, hateful, mongering piece of shit fucking hated the idea of immigrants. But for the longest time, part of American values was, bring us so you're tired, you're poor, you're sick, you're those yearning for freedom, all of that shtick. people yearning for freedom. We were literally the land of outcasts. And by embracing all of these differences and by embracing this great tradition and the core values of American values of decency, truth, honor, and loving thy neighbor, and accepting people's differences and diversity, and utilizing that strength, the diversity and differences, to become stronger than these homogenous racist countries. Again, I know we're racist shit, but let's just go with the narrative of the American way. Like, that was the core, but you abandoned that, Ben. You and your ilk have abandoned that value. So look, and more importantly, you're now saying no, this is what true American value is, and you changed the meaning of this word, of this phrase, American way. And quite frankly, most people who believe in the original American way, or at least the core concepts of the American way, like, well, if that's what American way means, then I guess my core concepts aren't the American way. I don't know what else to say. Superman didn't change. You did, Ben. You did.
Is the original 1978 Superman.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
This is not just a throwaway line. It is deeply important to the character of Superman.
Because he has to be American. Superman has to be American. Even though that's why you can ignore the whole illegal alien status or whatever, is because you want, like a corporate raider, to raid this IP and its cultural significance for all the value that it has, not taking into the moral values. You just want to take the love that people have and the respect for it, and you want to utilize that as a power fucking tool. You want to use that as a leverage point, but you don't actually give a shit about it. God, you're a bad person, Ben.
Why? Well, because take Superman just as a character. Superman is unbelievably powerful, unstoppable. He's faster than anyone. He has X-ray and laser vision. He's stronger than anyone, right? He's basically a god on Earth, and the biggest god. He's Zeus, right? He can do whatever he wants. And so, why is he the good guy? Why isn't Lex Luthor right? Because, let's be real, if there were a person on Earth who actually had those powers, Americans would rightly be very much afraid of that. Correctly. As Federalist 51 suggests, you need ambition to counteract ambition. If any one person had ultimate power, what you're really talking about is a philosopher king. And that's pretty scary, because that person could be a dictator, simply doing whatever they want to the world.
Ben absolutely wants these things. Ben doesn't care. Ben says he thinks they sound nice and good, and because he can utilize this ideology to fight against those who would try to tell him what to do, but he doesn't care. Aren't actual values to him.
The only reason why Superman would be a hero as opposed to a villain is because he grew up in America, because he has...
Again, this weird, also now we see American exceptionalism. Only in America could you have values of honesty, decency, the value for human life. Only in America. Not in England, not in France, not even in Russia, not in any other place, because nobody else, no down home salt of the earth, Middle Eastern person, nobody else could have possibly produced somebody who has a character of such goodness and purity that even absolute power cannot corrupt. That's an interesting thing, Ben. So here's my question. Seeing how you're such a absolute rabid fucking Zionist, if Superman landed in Israel, would he have turned into a tyrant? By this logic, you seem to suggest so. Only in America, ergo, not in Israel. If he landed in Israel, he would be just as much of a terrifying dictator-like tyrannical god as if he had landed in Iraq or Russia or China or any of these big old bad evils. Huh. But we wouldn't want to take this and analyze the actual core functions of what he's saying here about this idea of America as a country and nation being exceptional to others because of this kind of God-given spiritual blessing. I don't know what, like, we can't take that and think about, well, what does that mean if he landed in other countries? Oh, no.
the American way, right? He's emblematic of what America is.
Yes. He saves people of all races, colors, and creeds. He respects them of all races, colors, and creeds, and he respects life, the sanctity of life at all costs. He respects truth and justice as much as possible. He respects all of these things, things which you don't fucking care about.
They blunder, they make mistakes, but overall stands for freedom and liberty and private property.
Were those people who are going to be slaughtered by the Bavarians, those Jorobians or whatever you call them, those innocent people, or that, more importantly, this whole war thing, like, even if you think it is ham-handed or clumsy or whatever, wouldn't Superman want to stop all wars? Because that just seems like an explicitly good thing.
And free speech and all of those things.
All that stuff.
Right? All the good American stuff. There's a great comic book called Superman Red Sun. It's an alternative
You don't care about this.
universe in which Superman's capsule from Krypton lands in Soviet Russia. And he grows up as the emblem of Soviet Russia. And he's evil because he grew up in Soviet Russia. Because if you give that power...
Kind of. Yeah, he's not... So he's more repressive and authoritarian, which again would actually match up. He's far closer to Ben than he would like to admit. It's just aesthetically he's more Russian than American authoritarianism. And it's interesting that Ben is going to talk about the Red Sun version of Superman, but then is going to ignore the Dark Knight Returns Superman. We're just going to ignore that one, right, Ben? Going to bring that one up, Ben? Going to bring up that particular edition and rendition of Superman? No? Big Superman fan, and you don't recognize one of the classic... Again, yeah, it's a Batman-focused comic book in many ways, but that is one of those core classic kind of major philosophical moments of disagreement between Batman and Superman, and these two characters are often very closely tied together in certain like mirror-like manner, to where they mirror and reflect each other in certain aspects. You're not gonna bring up that one. You're not gonna bring up him. No. Okay, Ben.
Or that amount of power to an evil ideology, then evil...
Again, he just believes in this evil ideology thing. This is like, okay, I'm sorry, but if Superman is very much a fantastical character, because if he actually embodied all of American values like you, because he probably thinks Ben probably thinks he follows pretty strongly American core values and respects them. If he was you, Ben, he would be a fucking vile, horrible dictator, like piece of shit.
Ensues. So this is why it's really important. It's not just truth, justice, and the human way, or truth, justice, and all that good stuff. There's a specific definition of Americanism that says that this is why America, for example, should be a world power. Because America is better than other countries. And people who live in accordance with Americanism make the world better if they have more power. That's why...
But you seem to forget that part of the reason, if we want to take that to its truth, and why the American way is good, is because the American way values peoples of different colors, backgrounds, and puts value in core concepts of truth and justice and decency and honor and all that kind of stuff, and not into this strange, like, class system, caste system, color, or race system. And it puts it into much more core abstract values, and doesn't locate it specifically in some kind of body or material phenomena. That would be why, because those kind of things then value all forms of life and creates a ability for all forms of life to exist, as long as they comport to abstract conceptual goods and frameworks, and not some kind of material or in those material, how those things have a material impact, but not in some kind of intrinsic born right way. Like, you are born to be good and others are born bad, whether it be by race or caste or some kind of strange social system, or because you have more money or better. Again, Ben doesn't understand American values at all. What he understands is American privileges and American power, but he doesn't understand where they came from, whatever. He's just a spoiled, fucking hateful kid who never grew up and never understood the value of the things that he enjoys.
America is good, because otherwise Superman is bad and Lex Luthor is right, and we should restrict his power, and we should jail him, and we should check and balance him, and we should not let him be free. The problem is that Hollywood cannot say the American way because they don't believe in the American way. They don't believe that America is unique. They don't believe in these American basic values and principles and rights. They have a hard time even with the idea that, like, the values.
Again, it's interesting that he says all of this, that he doesn't believe that America is unique. Okay. So, Mr. Zionist, if Superman landed in Tel Aviv, would he be, right in the middle of Israel? Would he be a tyrant? Would he be evil because he grew up in with Israeli values? He is truth, justice, and the Israeli way. Would he be evil? Can't answer that one, can you fucking asshole?
Of Ma and Pa Kent back on the farm are values that ought to be promulgated in the best of all possible circumstances. And so what they come away with in kind of the key moment in this movie, for example, is Pa Kent telling Clark that parents don't make missions for their kids, right? They don't make their kids kind of what they are in terms of what they should be. They give kids the tools to choose what they want to be, and then those choices make those kids what they are. Okay, that's kind of half true and half not. Of course, you give your...
Again, he can't do that because he understands that that is a good value, and he understands that that is a truth. But that would then lead to things like, LGBTQ support, maybe, or allowing people of different lifestyles to exist as long as they are somewhat cohabitable with others, and or allowing differences to exist. He can't let that happen. Because again, he's an evil fucking shit. Ben Shapiro is kind of just a fucking tyrannical, evil fucking piece of shit. He just wraps it up in some degree of nicety, but when you break it down, his values are fucked. Doesn't believe in the American way. He doesn't believe in any of this.
Kids the tools to make choices in life. But you also try to define the mission your kid should have in life. That's maybe the most important thing you do as a parent. Direct them in a world of choices at what is the ultimate good? What is the ultimate goal? Hollywood is not run by people who believe that there is such a thing as an ultimate good or an ultimate goal. It's run by moral relativists who have a kind of, at best, soft-pedaled, generic, be nice attitude toward the world, which is why Superman's defense of intervening...
But again, be nice. Okay, so again, if you hold that value, again, so American values, if he was truly American value, didn't hold that, then Superman's not going to be anti-war. He's going to be pro-war. He's going to be like, yeah, let's destroy evil people. Which, okay, yeah, he is, but this is also like, all right, so why can't he destroy the Barovian army for invading the fucking whatever Jorhassian? I don't remember what it's called. I heard it one time and it went in and out of my brain. Why not? Like, again, this doesn't really work. And ultimately, the Superman that he would idealize is a Superman that is just as tyrannical. That would absolutely we go into this country, destroy all the evil people, and put good people in there. Go here, destroy all evil people, put good people in here. Destroy here, go here, destroy. Like, the amount of suffering and death that Superman would inflict according to his value system is catastrophic. And then we're replacing them with good people. Again, his definition of good people also sucks ass. Because he doesn't believe, he's not a good person.
In this foreign conflict is
People were going to die.
okay, well, people would die on the other side, presumably, if you didn't intervene. Or people die every day in conflicts all over the world.
This is why you're not Superman, you fucking idiot. You don't understand. Even if you think this, again, you are perfectly fine with mass slaughter. You are fine with mass killing, as long as it does good. Again, This is why, and again, if you want to have a problem with the overly simplistic nature of Superman, but then you can't then say they're doing Superman wrong, or oh, they're not making Superman like me. Superman isn't like you. He's not going to be the guy who's going to be slaughtering, even he's not going to kill tens of thousands, or he's not going to enjoy or like killing tens of thousands of Nazis. Even if he was in World War II, he might do it. But also, the big thing is that he would be constantly pushing for peace talks, constantly. Again, he's not completely averse to killing, but he really, really doesn't want people to die, especially if it's completely and utterly fucking unnecessary. Is it necessary for Barovia to maintain its existence to invade and kill these people? The explicit thing would be, no, it's not. But again, Ben wants his cake and eat it too. He wants to be able to do all the horrible, evil, imperialistic things that he might want to do, but he doesn't want to be seen as bad. Ever. He wants to have all of it and none of it. Ben, and again, this is just the triggering part, is that Ben wants the Palestinian people to be genocided. Because this really is Israel-Palestine. He got fucking triggered hard by some people pointing this out, and maybe even him as he goes into there. He probably heard from through the grapevine there might be some allusions to a Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And he saw that, and he saw how it was depicted, and it fucking triggered him because he wants all Palestinians dead. All of them. He wants all of them dead. He wants all of Gaza and the West Bank to be completely and totally turned into the Israeli kingdom. He wants all of Iran dead. He wants most of the Iranian government dead and its peoples dead. He doesn't give a shit. Kill all of them. Fuck them all. He wants them all dead, and let's incorporate that into Israel. He wants a total dictatorship domination, and he wants to murder everybody who he thinks as bad and evil. He wants, again, totalitarian. He wants this authoritarian, totalitarian fucking style, the theistic style government. That's what he wants at the core. When he gets rid of all them, he, as Superman, when he gets rid of all those, he wants all the gays thrown into the ocean. Remember, again, I remember this moment because it's fucking hilarious. Dave Rubin, ultimate centrist, right-leaning douchebag who fucking sold his soul because he's a whiny fucking cunt, is now making his bank off of placating to right-leaning fucking extremist douchebags. Earlier on, in his little leaning towards this, because he's just a neoliberal, he just went mask off. He never really was on the left or liberal really at all. He just wasn't. He just was a libertarian who enjoyed the privileges of liberalism. But he was talking to Ben Shapiro, and he's talking about how, like, maybe, we can disagree on kind of things, but, like, if I invited you to my wedding, you would come to this. And Ben Shapiro said, no, because you're gay wedding. I don't believe in that. Ben Shapiro doesn't believe gay people should be married. He doesn't believe they should be allowed to exist. He doesn't believe they should be allowed to practice their form of love. He doesn't believe that. And again, the only way you would be able to stop that is through some pretty extreme forms of abuses of liberty, truth, justice, all of that. Ben does not believe in the American way. He doesn't believe in Superman. That's why, again, he reacted so harshly to this. And again, this goes into even the Israeli-Palestinian thing, is that he wants... Excuse me. Again, he just wants mass destruction and death of everybody who disagrees with him, everybody who he doesn't like, everybody whose lifestyles he disagrees with. He wants them all gone so that he can live in this perfect utopia where everybody is exactly like Ben Shapiro. He is fucking vile. Ben Shapiro is as vile as Lex Luthor. He's as close-minded as any of them. He's a vile little shit stain. And whenever he starts saying these things, understand, just remember all the shit he's said in the past. And then realize that's what he is. That's what he believes. That's why he's upset that Superman isn't there. He wanted Superman. Like, I don't think he would get so goddamn rock hard if they had a Superman film to where Israeli was invading and Israel was invading and fucking slaughtering Palestinians, and Superman comes through and just kind of like fucking strafes with his laser beam and just blows up half of Gaza. And you just see all these jihadis and all these women and children who are Palestinian, explicitly Palestinian, just burning alive and dying by the tens of thousands. Ben Shapiro would have a fucking rock hard goddamn erection. Like the first time he would have a true honest to God erection. And he would just be slobbering over himself going, God damn it, yes! Fucking kill everything. Kill them all. And then Superman rounds up all the gays, lesbians, and LGBTQ community people in America, and he throws them all in the madhouse and crazy place where they're all lobotomized and given massive doses of fucking downers or whatever, some kind of lithium thing or something like that, antipsychotics, to basically turn them into drooling messes. And he'd be like this, yeah, that's good. You know, that's the moral thing. People were so mentally, morally, and spiritually broken that the only way that we could morally keep them alive is to just kind of lobotomize them. This is best. This is for the best. That's Ben Shapiro, if he wants and gets his way. 100%. He just modulates it because he knows he doesn't have the political or military or whatever power to accomplish it. If Ben Shapiro was Superman, he'd be a monster.
Right? The reason that Clark or Superman is supposed to intervene is because one side is right and one side is wrong. And unless you are willing to simply...
If you're butchering children, you're wrong. It's for Superman, it's that simple.
Say that all foreign policy situations in which people die under any circumstances are equivalent, which I don't think is right, then you end up in this kind of weird generic place.
No, you end up in a place that is maybe unreal to us, but that's because we're human. Superman isn't. He's an ideal.
Question of
he's a hero.
Superman has never really been handled by any movie, and it's certainly not handled here, which is why should one person be given this much power? And the answer...
God damn, could you just imagine the superhero movie that Ben Shapiro would fucking make? Holy shit. Let's see what his answer is why should one person be given this much power? Again, he wasn't given. That's also an important thing, is that the question is, should one person have this much power? And also, that's the question that Superman is dealing with constantly.
Has never really been handled by any movie, and it's certainly not handled here, which is why should one person be given this much power? And
also given. He's not given it. Again, this is weird. There's a weird kind of like divine right chosen kind of thing that Ben Shapiro kind of does, is like that this person was given this or otherwise chosen by God or whatever. But that's not, again, Superman wasn't given this power. He had this power.
The answer is he shouldn't, unless he is essentially just a metaphor for what makes America awesome, which is what Superman was designed to be. This is why Superman in the original comics is punching Hitler, because he is the American one.
Yep, and he's still punching Hitler today. It's just, you moved. Superman didn't change that much. That's the thing that, again, like I said before, it's like that's the thing that a lot of these kind of right-wing chuds who fucking hate any form of woke, so-called woke media, and I have some problems with, again, so-called woke media for various reasons, but that's ultimately the reason why, is that they don't realize that they moved way far away, is that, again, they hate Superman and his American values. Why? Because they've moved so far right, so extremist, so hateful that Superman is now punching them and people they align with. Superman didn't move. Superman didn't change. You did.
Way, and not the German way or the Soviet way or the Chinese way, which are different things. So again, that is the fatal flaw, I think, for pretty much all Superman movies, but in this one specifically, they don't even bother with any of that. It's cotton candy. You'll watch it. Maybe you'll enjoy it. Maybe you'll be like me and be overcritical. You'll walk away. 2 days later, you won't be thinking about the movie. 2 hours later, you won't be thinking about the movie. Nothing about the movie is going to stick with you. The hero of the movie is the dog.
Again, don't don't pay attention to any of this. I don't want you to be affected by any of this, by this particular media. Don't do this. It's good, but don't be affected by any of it. Why? Because again, he doesn't want you thinking about any of these things. He doesn't want you because he explicitly wants the outcomes. Again, he wants the outcome that Lex wants. Wants the outcome that Barovia wants. He wants those things.
Superman has to be saved multiple times by this, like, not particularly good dog.
He's really kind of triggered by the dog, too.
I mean, he's a good doggo, I suppose, but he really is badly behaved, this dog. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So, my overall review, 2 out of 5 stars. Meh. I think that the stars do their best with bad material given to them by James Gunn.
The worms going in through the mouth and helping him as he's sobbing. And, you know, he was it's kneeling at the end of the bed, and I was on the other side of the bed for that whole time.
Good job by David Corenswet. Good.
What the fuck is even... Well, again, I just don't understand the weird James Gunn things.
Good job by Rachel Brosnahan. Good job by Nicholas Hoult. Good job by Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific. But, you know.
God, he really got triggered by the politics of this movie. By even the small little tidbit of there. He is so fucking rabidly extremist. Again, remember this. This is the same reaction that you see whenever you see some kind of strong core, like some kind of hardcore fundamentalist Islamist kind of person reviewing some American movie and the evils and the terrible things. Yes, the acting is somewhat good and there's some things like there, but it's just morally decadent and destruction as you see these whore-like women walking about with their heads being covered. It's just terrible, whatever. Again, the only reason is that, again, he's a slightly more acceptable Western aesthetic version of that same level of religious extremism. God, I hate Ben Shapiro. What a slimy little shit. But that was kind of fun. It's really funny. Again, he tries to present himself such a lover of Superman. He just doesn't he doesn't actually even, ignoring all that, like his weird thing about crypto being badly behaved. It's just like, man, that's kind of like just a thing. And then, again, those are small things, but they really do kind of start showing the cracks and the much larger overall problem of Ben Shapiro and his perspective. And he simply cannot critically examine movies or any kind of fiction. He is so incredibly crazy biased that he can't see jack shit. And again, I'm pretty sure the whole small allusion to Israel, Palestine, or Russia, Ukraine, especially in the idea of like, oh, this military advanced country that's an ally of America is destroying and using that as a fucking smokescreen to invade and destroy a foreign nation and slaughtering innocent civilians who are unarmed. That idea is so fucking triggering to Ben. That's hilarious. But that was fun. All right. We're going to go ahead and end it there with his little smug face. We will pick this up next time. Maybe, I believe, let's see, tomorrow we will probably try to do some good gaming. We need to do some gaming. Thursdays are our gaming days. So we'll try to... I got a bunch of backlog of games I need to do, big and small. So maybe we'll do something. We did kind of a weird one on Monday, I think. So we'll do some gaming on Thursday. And maybe if you guys have any video recommendations or things that you want me to watch, things that you want me to critique and analyze, send them my direction through various means. There are ways to contact me. I'm sure you can find some. But otherwise, thank you all for being here. Thank you for hanging out. And until next time, and as always, I hope you have a good one.